The 2025 Rockies were a team that redefined what it meant to be bad. Their season was the inevitable conclusion to missteps in roster building, resource allocation, and a franchise mentality that rival evaluators have described as being, at best, an entire decade behind the rest of the league. For a hardcore fan of the team, this was a season from hell. Even if you expected nothing from this roster, they still managed to disappoint on a biblical level. I wanted to experience it firsthand. Step into the shoes of a Rockies fan who had to live through a summer in Abaddon. In the past, I've used a single game as a vessel to describe the ineptitude of a franchise. But you know what? One game doesn't even begin to paint the picture. So I decided to watch every single 2025 Rockies game. Now, obviously, I have a few asterisks for this experiment. Did I really watch every pitch and every inning of the 2025 Rockies? No. But wait. Hear me out. There were 162 games in a regular season. In a post-pitch clock era, they're averaging around 2.5 hours. That comes out to around 15 days worth of baseball, even when I'm skipping through pitching changes in mid-innings. As a touring musician / baseball YouTuber who is literally making scrap, I simply don't have that much time to watch baseball. No, wait. Hear me out. What I did do was watch every condensed game on either Baseball Theater or YouTube. Think of condensed games as bulked up highlights. They show you every critical point in each game and then some, and they average a much more manageable 10 to 12 minutes. On top of that, I did select a few key games to watch in full. I'm not totally skimping on the premise here. Those games are opening day at George M. Steinbrenner Field, May 10th against the Padres, May 18th at the Diamondbacks, August 1st against the Pirates, we all know which one that is, and the final game of the season in San Francisco. And if you really need the proof, good band by the way, I logged everything on Rate Game, which you can download in the description. It's an amazing app, I'm partnered with it, and it was a great way to log all my thoughts and feelings after each game. At the same time, I made sure to keep up with the news and pulse of the fan base by reading every single article on Purple Row, one of the best sources for Rockies news and discussion. Huge shout out to writer Samantha Bradfield, Renee Deschert, you guys know I'm bad with names, Adam Peterson, Skylar Trimmins, Evan Lang, and Paul Elliott. Y'all are the real heroes here. I basically wanted to simulate the experience of being a Rockies fan in 2025. If you want to dispute the veracity of this experiment due to the methodology, then by all means, I implore you. I can't believe I wrote that sentence. We'll keep it in. I feel like I got the best or worst from the experience. But if you want to doubt me, then go right ahead. I'll just tell you right now, the suffering you are about to witness was real. So let's go ahead and jump into the experiment. Join me as I torture myself by watching every single 2025 Rockies game. But first, this video was made possible by my patrons on Patreon. I'm not going to sit here and waste much of your time. You can see the benefits on the left of your screen here. I'm very active on there, and if you ask any one of my patrons, they would tell you the $3 to $5 a month is worth it. To up the incentive though, the next 50 people to sign up for the level 2 Ball Wizard tier will receive a baseball card, a No More Fielder sticker, and a personal note of gratitude. If that is of any interest to you, then head over to patreon.com/nomorefielders after this video. Link is in the description. Now, let the torture really begin. So if you're familiar with the unique situation the Rockies are presented with, playing half their games in the Rocky Mountains of Denver, Colorado, you can go and skip ahead. For the others, I do want to give a brief presser on what gives the Rockies the most circuitous situation in baseball. We all know the higher you ascend, the lower the air pressure gets. Well, the Rockies play 5,000 feet above sea level, 5 times higher than anyone else. This affects literally everything on the diamond. Balls travel farther, breaking pitches don't break as much as the Magnus effect is nerfed, and players get more fatigued due to lower oxygen levels. To put this in the simplest terms, the way you understand baseball is fundamentally changed. A 5-run lead is a 2-run lead. Pitchers you expect to dominate struggle. Some players have to skip the series altogether due to underlying health conditions. Now, while it is true that offenses benefit greatly at altitude, it does mess up some Rockies hitters on the road because they don't get to see a pitcher's best stuff in Coors Field. That's why I don't necessarily believe in the Coors effect for Rockies hitters, because in my mind it evens out. But for pitchers, it fucks them up. There's no way around it. There are some remedies and certain archetypes that can succeed at altitude, but we'll get into that later. So let's not beat around the bush here. Everyone and their mother, and probably father, knew the Rockies were going to finish at the bottom of the NL West going into the season. They were coming off a 101-loss campaign in 2024, and the only major additions they made to the roster over the offseason were signing infielder Thairo Estrada to a one-year contract, and bringing former Brewers prospect Keston Hiura and NC Dinos legend Nick Martini on minor league deals, save for a few additions to the bullpen such as Jimmy Herget and Scott Alexander. That's about it. Oh, and they signed 34-year-old infielder Kyle Farmer. We will be seeing plenty of him. The real focus for this team was a look towards the future, a concept they've begun to begrudgingly accept. For the optimistic fan, 2025 was going to be the beginning of the youth movement on 20th and Blake Street. Their feelings were validated when Rockies GM Bill Schmidt was quoted as saying, "If one of the young guys are ready, we're not afraid to go with them." This team had some intriguing youngsters to evaluate going into spring training. From the 2023 first round pick Chase Dolander, a starting pitcher who personally reminds me of a young version of old Charlie Morton, Zach Veen, the 2020 first round selection who, although saw his prospect stock deflate in recent seasons, has the blistering speed needed to cover Coors' vast outfield. Adael Amador, a contact-oriented second baseman out of the Dominican Republic, third baseman Kyle Karros, a defensive wizard and son of former All-Star Eric, as well as returnees Hunter Goodman and Jordan Beck. These are players who, while probably not going to make an immediate impact, should get some run on a rebuilding team with veterans on standby in case they falter. But then they made a series of head-scratching but not out-of-character moves during spring training, from assigning minor league veteran Nick Martini to the major league roster and signing free agent outfielder Mickey Moniak to a major league contract. They also traded 2023 All-Star outfielder Nolan Jones to the Guardians for utility man Tyler Freeman, a move I actually kinda liked, but we'll get into that later. And placing reliever Justin Lawrence, one of only a handful of relievers who could say they had a good season pitching for the Rockies this decade, on waivers. Which, look, if I had to do a write-up on every single boneheaded move the Rockies made this season alone, we'd be here until the end of the 2026 season. But going into the season, there were already mixed signals that pointed towards a club that pretended to make a change, only to immediately revert back to old habits. I understand needing veteran leadership. I mean, look at what happened to the Washington Nationals. But you already have that in mainstays like Ryan McMahon and Kyle Freeland. Instead of committing to wholesale changes, the team took yet another half measure, loading up on a roster full of stopgap veterans sprinkled with young talent instead of the inverse, which fans were hoping for. Prized offseason acquisition Thairo Estrada broke his wrist on a hit-by-pitch, so he's going to be out for quite some time. But hey, at least Chris Bryant looks healthy, and look, his bat speed is up. What could possibly go wrong? The Rockies began their season in quite a fitting venue, George M. Steinbrenner Field in Tampa, Florida, home of the Yankees spring training camp as well as their FSL affiliate, the Tampa Tarpons. I almost said tampons. The Tampa Tarpons. Wow. Due to damages caused to the Trop by Hurricane Milton, the Rays had to play their home games in a minor league facility. And because the universe works in funny ways, the first guest happened to be a team who throughout the season would call the issue of relegation into question. Game 1 was a competitive affair. Kyle Freeland, making his franchise record 4th opening day start, was looking to bounce back from a devastating 2024 season that was inauspiciously kicked off with a nightmarish 10-run outing in Arizona. The 31-year-old lefty looked outstanding against the Rays, using his sweeper to inundate lefties while using his sinker to induce soft contact against righties. Unfortunately, the Rockies' offense was held at bay by Rays starter Ryan Pepio. Tyler Kinley and Angel Shivii dropped the ball, and before anyone even had the opportunity to say, "Who the hell spells Cameron with a K?" Rays pinch hitter Cameron Meisner deposits a Victor Vodnik fastball into the right field stands to hand the Rockies their first loss. It's okay though, there's plenty of season left. The next game was funny as hell. Rockies starter Antonio Senzatella was getting slapped up and down George M. Steinbrenner Field, but the Rockies defense, the one component of the team that looked to be a strength, came through and kept bailing him out. This game should have been 5-0 by the third inning. The offense scrounges up a go-ahead run on a Kyle Farmer single in the 7th, and by the good graces of Seth Halverson's fastball, are able to hold on to their first victory of the season. Hey, 1-1. That's not bad. Take a good look at this record, because this will be the best mark the Rockies sit at all season. It's all downhill from here. Rays take the rubber match as the Rockies defense, saviors in Game 2, become the Achilles heel. The team did get a solid outing from Ryan Feltner during yet another close game in Tampa. Honestly, 3 fairly competitive games. I think Game 2 should have been less competitive. That felt like a game the Rays should have won. Not the worst start to a season. I mean, I know they lost the first series, but they were fairly competitive games on the surface. Even though watching them, the Rays felt like the much, much better team here. The Rockies travel from West Tampa to South Philadelphia to face the Phillies. Side note, as someone who is simultaneously witnessing the Braves implode on the West Coast, maybe we need to rethink the scheduling. I know the schedule makers don't want to burn a bunch of division rival matchups within the first week of the season because of the new balanced schedule, but there does have to be some psychological disadvantage to starting your season on a cross-country road trip, especially when you come out of the gate cold and it starts to snowball. But I don't know, I'm just spitballing here. Anyway, despite another good outing from their starter, this time from Rocky lifer German Marquez, the offense yet again sputters against Christopher Sanchez and co., racking up another 11 strikeouts while scoring a measly 1 run. Granted, it was a blast off of catcher Hunter Goodman's bat. He's gotten off to a really good start at the plate. The next game, the offense wastes yet another good outing from Kyle Freeland, setting their season high in strikeouts at 14 against the dominant arm of Zach Wheeler. Seth Halverson coughs up a bases-loaded double against Edmundo Sosa. And now there's a real question about who in this bullpen is going to reliably collect outs. We haven't even entered cores yet, and the back half of the pitching core is imploding. Despite me thinking Antonio Senzatella was about to get lit up worse than an April Christmas tree, he held his own and delivered yet another solid outing for a Rockies starter. I wonder how long that's going to last for. Hopefully he can build on this. Unfortunately, the offense was held to 1 run again, this time not by Christopher Sanchez, nor Zach Wheeler, but by Taijuan freaking Walker, showing it doesn't really matter who's on the mound. This team cannot score runs. I could name off the culprits for this early offensive ineptitude, but it might be easier for me to name the players we can clear. Colorado was swept out of Philadelphia. The Rockies finally get to travel back home and face a team who matches their dysfunction, at least from an ownership standpoint. This is the magical point of the season where Denver is still shaking off the previous winter, so that means we get baseball in the snow, one of the most striking visuals you'll see in all of sports. So that was pleasant. Unfortunately, the comedy of errors we saw from the Rockies defense in Game 1 was not. Despite yet another good outing from a starter, and remember, we are judging on a curve here, I'd consider allowing 3 runs over 5 innings a good start at cores. The Rockies make their first of what eventually felt like a jillion boneheaded plays in the 6th. Fielding a Miguel Andujar missile, Jordan Beck hits the cutoff man Tovar in shallow left, who then tries to throw it towards the Marquise Theater on Larimer Street. Goodman recovers and looks like he has his man at home, but instead tosses it and throws a bullseye onto Tyler Soderstrom's helmet. By all accounts, a good play if we're using wiffle ball rules, but this is the majors. And that's a theme we'll see with the defense that becomes hard to stomach. We know it to be more than capable of being a strength, but the number of mental mistakes that take them out of the game becomes hard to fathom. The next day, they prove my point by turning the first triple play of the season. Unfortunately, they effectively undo it when an errant throw from Hunter Goodman turns an advance on a wild pitch to an easy run scored. German Marquez rolls through 5 innings, but is taken out after Tyler Soderstrom sneaks a double past Michael Toglia with 2 on. A pair of bombs gives the A's a 4-run lead, which feels very insurmountable for an offense that is unable to string hits together, even at cores. But Ron McMahon swats his first homer of the season. It is a thing of beauty, the rare times he's able to get a hold of one. Unfortunately, even Rockies fans are bad at their job. I mean, come on man, that thing had so much airtime, And you brought a glove. Chase Dollander makes his major league debut trying to help the Rockies snap out of a 6-game losing streak. Dollander is a pitcher who on literally any other team might be propped up alongside Nolan McLean and Chase Burns as one of the premier young arms in the game. Taken 9th overall at the University of Tennessee by the Rockies in the 2023 draft, there's a point he was in discussion to be the possible first overall pick above Paul Skeens, but a failed experiment in his final season to get more breaking action on his slider led him to following in the Rockies' laps. He combines a 98-mile-per-hour heater with a punchy curveball. In addition, he sprinkles in a cut slider and sinker while developing a changeup to combat lefties. This right here is a pitcher who will be critical to their success. And unfortunately, I don't really know if he's built to pitch at altitude. I like the fastball a lot, but it doesn't really have enough vertical ride to separate from a sinker, and the lack of an effective changeup hurts. It sucks because his best pitch, in my opinion, that whipping curveball, just won't be as effective in Denver. Anyway, he has a solid debut against a hot offense. A 6-1 strikeout to walk ratio will always be approved in this house. Even more encouraging, the offense finally broke out. We saw contributions from all over. Brenton Doyle had a big game at the plate. Mr. Double himself, Ezekiel Tovar, added 2 to his ledger. Even Chris Bryant and his 60-mile-per-hour bat collected 2 hits. Rockies avoid the sweep. First things first, McMahon should not be batting third against lefties. To me, whatever you're losing in the back half of the game, you're more than gaining in the first half of the game. Move McMahon back. There's no excuse for it. Youth movement looks fine. Also, the starters haven't been bad. They've given you quality starts. It's just every time you bring in the bullpen, they blow it. Especially when you have a bad start. And watching the 2025 Braves was, I'm getting flashbacks here. It feels like you don't know how your team is going to put together a win. You don't even know what the formula looks like. The team makes a lot of mental mistakes, and they're not talented enough to be able to just throw games away mentally. Kyle Farmer, pretty good. I mean, that was a very uninspiring offseason transaction, but he's actually held his own at second base, both offensively and defensively. Chris Bryant, it's just sad. It is so obvious at this point in the season, something is not right. We'll see what they look like going into week 3. Well, the day finally came. Zach Veen got the call to the majors. Now, surely the corresponding move would be to designate, I don't know, say a Nick Martini off the roster so the kids can continue to get some run. Nope, Jordan Beck. Hope you still have your apartment in Albuquerque, or else you're gonna be the one who knocks on your friend's door looking for a place to crash. Yeah, the Rockies deserve whatever's about to happen. The Brewers come to town. I remember thinking that if you switch the Rockies lineup with the Brewers, they might threaten the all-time scoring record. Let's see if I was right. Kyle Freeland takes the bump in Game 1. As someone who's now watched a full game of Kyle Freeland pitching on the road versus at Coors, it is truly jarring to see how much bite that slider loses at altitude. I mean, this was a pitch that went from going coast to coast to barely covering the borders of Rhode Island. Brewers contact bro him for 4 runs in the top of the 3rd. Brenton Doyle, who is starting to round back into his 2024 form, takes a Freddie Peralta slider into the stands. Unfortunately, it would be the only run the Rockies scored. Zach Veen lays down a bunt that turns into a 2-bagger for his first career hit, so, that was fun. The next game proved my ball knowledge as the Brewers laid an onslaught on Antonio Senzatella, who finally paid for all the good luck he received in his first 2 starts. Trying to avoid yet another sweep, Ryan Feltner throws up a legitimately good start to stymie the Brewers' offense. Also, it is April 10th, and Kyle Farmer is hitting 3rd in the Rockies lineup. A 34-year-old who came into the season with a lifetime 701 OPS is hitting 3rd. I'm convinced the Rockies told Michael Toglia to start focusing on hitting the ball on the ground because what the hell is this? Despite my complaints, this was a solid Rockies victory. Brenton Doyle tops off his fantastic series with a 4-hit game, and credit where credit is due, Michael Toglia got the game-deciding hit on a key double in the 8th. A ball which he did, in fact, hit in the air. Good for him. The Rockies head southwest for San Diego. At this point of the season, they're bad, but their record isn't raising any red flags quite yet. They didn't start 0-12 is what I'm saying. Well, that all changed in San Diego. I'm just going to spare you the gory details. Game 1, shutout. Game 2, shutout. Game 3, shutout. In between, we saw more boneheaded, horrific plays, another solid start from Dolander, and just the worst baseball from Michael Toglia. So yeah, I have a bone to pick with Toglia. Some people might think my intolerance for his game is unjustified. So let me justify it. Let's talk strikeout rates. The lowest strikeout rate a hitter ever posted in a full season post-integration was Lou Boudreau with a minuscule 1.3% in 1948. The lowest since 2000 was Luis Ariz in 2025 with a 3.1% rate. 16.7% was the strikeout rate for the 2025 NL batting champion Trey Turner. The league average strikeout rate sits here at 22.2%. AL MVP Aaron Judge posted a 23.6% K rate. James Wood, who led the league in strikeouts, had a 32.1% K rate. Chris Davis, who in 2018 had one of the worst seasons we've ever seen from a full-time hitter, had a 37.2% strikeout rate. Michael Toglia sat at 39.2% in 2025. I am convinced that if the Rockies kept him up all year, he would have had the worst season we've ever seen from a full-time player. Even when he did make contact, it was going in the ground more than a third of the time. For all the promise he showed in 2024, he backpedaled his way out of an MLB job in 2026. And it was incredibly painful to watch this man take at-bats early in the season. I mean, honestly, what is there to say? I don't know how the Rockies GM at the time, Bill Schmidt, doesn't see the Brewers lineup and think to himself, gee whiz, all these players who are undervalued by the market, who make a lot of contact, even if there's not a lot of power there, man, they would be great for this Rockies lineup. Like, the formula is so simple. It's right there in front of you. Contact and chaos. You could potentially improve your lineup by like 10 wins overnight by just finding a bunch of players who, even if their power numbers kind of stink, make a lot of contact. It's that easy. Right now, Kyle Farmer is the most watchable player on this team. Kyle Farmer. The pitching really hasn't been the problem. I understand there are some lopsided scores. They put up some crooked innings. When your offense is scoring 0 runs per game on the road, it doesn't matter if your pitching gives up 2 runs or if they give up 15 runs. This defense is bad, especially at cores. It must be so deflating for the pitching staff because outs are a commodity there. Throw them away. That's how you get game 2 versus the Brewers. There's just too many zeros in the lineup, especially with a lineup that lacks punch. They'll get base runners, and then Jacob Stallings is at the plate, or Chris Bryant comes to the plate. Michael Toglia comes up to the plate. The series against the Padres was the weekend from hell. This was a bloodbath, and I don't know if it can get any lower from here. Chris Bryant is placed on the IL. It is announced that he is suffering from a degenerative back condition that he'll have to manage for the rest of his life. As much as we want to clown on both Bryant and the Rockies for signing this contract, seeing his presser in the wake of the news is just very heavy-hearted.
Not good. Not good. It sucks. It just... Yeah, I mean, I think it's the best way to put it. It really sucks.
Working with the mental skills coach?
Oh, yeah. I have a bunch of people I talk to, which I have a great support staff around me. People here, people that I just hired on my own, and that's been really helpful for me. It takes a toll on you, your physical performance, and then obviously me being injured a lot. Like, it's tough to be on the field. I want to play the game.
So you're not thinking retirement?
No, I want to play.
This is a man who so desperately wants to be on the field, even while his body is telling him to pack it in. The fact that he's even trying to attempt to make his way back shows how much he cares about this franchise. I know this contract is going to go down as one of the worst of all time, if not the worst. But let's not misconstrue Bryant's level of commitment here, especially next to the guy he's going to be compared to for years while this deal runs its course. The Rockies make their way to Los Angeles, and the excuse I keep hearing at this point is they had a tough schedule to start the year, which I do agree with. Out of the first 6 series they played, 4 of them were against playoff teams, including the eventual World Series winner. I get that. Doesn't erase them dropping 2 out of 3 against the Athletics and Rays. Antonio Senzatella, who is at comic levels of pitching affliction, allows 2 runs in the first. The way this offense is swinging on the road, this game already feels out of reach. And now, to my detriment, the only productive hitters in this lineup are Nick Martini and Kyle Farmer. The youth movement might have been a mistake. Game 3 looked dire from the jump. Brenton Doyle is out with a sore quad, and Ezequiel Tovar is out with hip inflammation, testing the Rockies' already thin depth. We are in the 18th game of the season, and we are being treated to Nick Martini leading off, Sean Bouchard in the 2-hole, and the 34-year-old Kyle Farmer running around at shortstop. And on top of that, German Marquez couldn't get out of the first inning. However, they were facing the ghost of Bobby Miller. Their offense and bullpen, the 2 columns of this team that had completely collapsed already, were able to piece themselves together and make this one semi-competitive. Finally. They still lost, but at least they put up a good fight. Despite the nice loss, this is officially when reality set in. The moment the Rockies fanbase knew they could be witnessing some historically awful baseball here in 2025. A reality that everyone who was paying attention knew to be inevitable. So how the hell did the Rockies arrive here? What brought them into the pits of all-time mediocrity? When it came to the White Sox and athletics, the issues stemmed from the owner and festered their way into every aspect of the franchise. The Rockies are no different, but unlike them, said owner isn't afraid to spend. They run payrolls mostly commensurate with their revenue. You see this guy? This is Rockies owner Dick Monfort. He is, to put it nicely, delusional. He's a nice guy by all accounts. He even responds to fan emails. He's been described as loyal to a fault. He runs his team like a family-owned restaurant. You know, the ones you'd see on Kitchen Nightmares. Prior to this offseason, the Rockies organizational chart read as a who's who of personnel who've been with the franchise since their founding or members of the Monfort family. This is all fine in theory, but the Rockies have been moving slower than stalagmite when it comes to adopting analytics. Analytics! Next time someone like your uncle or Jeff Fry complains about analytics being a bunch of meaningless drool, point to the Rockies as an example of a team who agree and see where it's gotten them. Insular is just about the perfect word to describe this franchise. They refuse to interview external candidates for vacant positions. They don't often make trades, and the result is a snake eating its own tail. According to ESPN, the Rockies draft picks of the last 10 years have produced a total of 10. 10 wins above replacement. Brendan Rodgers, a player who some of you may not even know about, and many of you probably haven't thought about in years, has been the most valuable draft pick during that time. Dick Monfort doesn't see any problem with this and thinks his team is in a lot better position than they actually are. In fact, he's become notorious for his bold predictions. In 2014, he predicted his team would win 90 games. They ended up losing 96. In 2020, he predicted they'd win 94 games. They finished at a 70-win pace in the shortened season. He believed they could play 500 ball in 2023. Not even close. That's why they've never committed to a full-scale rebuild. Even this season, he publicly stated the Rockies' defense would be, and I quote, the best defense, maybe in the history of the game. I'm noticing a similar cadence with how he speaks to someone else. I can't quite put my finger on it, but we all know how that's turning out so far. Despite this, Monfort will stick to the plan, business as usual. And now, I gotta suffer through it. Speak of the devil. Rockies brass determines the first head must roll. Out is hitting coach Hensley Mullins. In is former Rockies manager Clint Hurdle. He had been serving as the special assistant to GM Bill Schmidt. The more things change, the more they stay the same. Quick side note, I understand that is very standard operating procedure for any MLB team when they make a midseason firing to bring in someone who's already with the organization. I am fully aware of that. It just fit the bit, okay? It just fit the bit. But I am aware that is common. It's not a Rockies thing to make a move like that. Ezequiel Tovar is placed on the 10-day IL with a bruised hip. Brenton Doyle is placed on the bereavement list. My thoughts and prayers towards his family. The corresponding moves are selecting the contract of infielder Aaron Schunk and Jordan Beck from Albuquerque. Additionally, Victor Vodnik is placed on the IL, and Zach Agnos has been called up to replace him. The Nationals come to town, a team who almost completely botched their rebuild. And it wasn't just due to the lack of veteran leadership. They pretty much failed on all fronts except for the haul they got back in the Juan Soto trade, which, in my mind, is more about Padres GM AJ Preller than it really was about the genius of Nationals GM Mike Rizzo. But you know what? At least they committed to one. Did you know they've won almost double the amount of playoff games in their 20-year history than the Rockies have in their 33-year history? The Nationals. I'm not even talking about the toast of the town here. The Rockies don't even hold a candle to other miserable franchises. Besides maybe a couple. Game 1 Friday night is postponed due to weather, so a doubleheader is scheduled for Sunday. Chase Dollander takes the bump against Mackenzie Gore, looking to build on his solid start in San Diego. Unfortunately, he experiences what every pitcher at every level experiences at some point or another. He just didn't have his stuff. Even young guys like Chase Dollander pivot their way into grinding out an okay start. That's simply not an option at altitude. If your fastball release point doesn't feel right, if you're not in rhythm, if you don't have the feel for your secondaries, you're just gonna have to wear it. There is no way to dig out of this hole. It only deepens. For the second straight game, the Rockies are given a lifeline by means of facing the Nationals bullpen. The freshly recalled Jordan Beck shows Alex Call how difficult left field in Coors is with a bases clearing triple, but it's not enough. Braxton Fulford gets the start at catcher in Game 1 of the Sunday doubleheader. Why am I pointing this out? It's because this was the Braxton Fulford game. He allowed 3 runs, count them, 3 runs, on 2 errant throws in the same inning. He redeemed himself by nabbing known speedster Josh Bell in the 5th and cracking a homer for his first career hit in the bottom of the 6th. I love baseball. The Rockies' third-string catcher was responsible for almost every run in this game. Rockies lose 2-3, and Kyle Freeland leaves the start early due to a blister. The Rockies' defense turns back into Mr. Hyde in Game 2 of the doubleheader. Apparently, they can only field their position when Antonio Senzatella is on the mound. Guess they're on extra high alert. Zach Agnos and his mustache help seal the deal and gives us another Rockies Sunday win. Oh. We're only in April. I still have, 140 plus games to go. Positives. Let's start with the positives. I'm going to attempt to assign a player of the week each week. If nobody earns it, I'm just going to do how they handle the NPB Cy Young and just not give it to anybody. But this week, I will give it to both Angel Chivi as well as Tyler Kinley. They've done a really good job extending the bullpen, especially considering they had to cover more innings than anticipated, with German Marquez only being able to get 1 out against the Dodgers, as well as Kyle Freeland leaving the game with an injury. Zach Veen is fun. I think Zach Veen is the one guy you just let loose. I don't care if he ends up crashing and burning into the ground. He is somebody who I think should just remain on this roster. I think we should make it illegal for some people to play Major League Baseball, and we need to make an example out of Michael Toglia. Either he's striking out, or if he makes contact, it is a grounder to second. I'm starting to debate in order what the most painful sides of this team are to watch between offense, defense, and pitching. For me, offense is just the most painful. Then defense is the second most painful. At least the pitching has had their moments. This team wins another Sunday game. They win another game to cap off a awful week, but it's like putting truffles on a shit sandwich. Brenton Doyle is reinstated and Zach Veen is optioned back to AAA. Damn. The Rockies travel to Kansas City for an interleague matchup with the Royals. Ryan Feltner is allowed to use his full arsenal of pitches at max effectiveness and throws just a dandy, landing strike after strike, locating his breaking pitches. Unfortunately, the Rockies' inept offense couldn't do anything against Chris Bubik. And even though catcher Jacob Stallings got a key double to give the Rockies a late lead, the bullpen, which is just not locked down when it needs to be, coughs up a run in the 9th. Royals take Game 1 in extras. The Rockies do something quite bold in Game 2. They score in the first inning. Oh, how this lineup desperately needed Brenton Doyle. Unfortunately, German Marquez can't fight his first inning demons and puts up another stinker. At least this time he was able to make it through 4 innings. The young guys also showed up on offense, so that was encouraging. The Rockies have to play their second doubleheader in as many series and just looked flat in the final game. The team makes the hour-and-a-half flight back to Colorado to play the Cincinnati Reds. Kyle Freeland, making his first start since leaving with the blister, takes the bump. Even though he looked fine, the Reds scatter 10 hits off of him. Spunk master Jordan Beck gets his first career start leading off as Brenton Doyle is now nursing a sore quad. it pays dividends. He cracks a leadoff homer in the 4th and tacks on another in the 8th for his second multi-homer game in as many days. Crack open a beer for Jordan. Okay, that was f***ing awful. On Coors' 30th anniversary, Antonio Senzatella flashes the leather, managing to go toe-to-toe with Red starter Hunter Greene. In spite of receiving a career game from rookie Adel Amador, the Rockies 1-3 goes 0 for 13 with 6 strikeouts. Ron McMahon can't buy himself a hit. He's 2 for his last 50. Brenton Doyle looks to still be struggling with his quad. Happy hour has ended for Nick Martini. His at-bats need to start going to someone under the age of 32. Kyle Farmer's abs are sore because he's a 34-year-old trying to play shortstop in one of the fastest infields in MLB. So to get Farmer off his feet, the Rockies reunite with an old friend, shortstop Alan Trejo. Lord save us. Young Bradley Blaylock takes the bump in Game 3, and tell me if you've heard this one before, trying to prevent a sweep. Unfortunately, he gets lit up in the first inning, and leaves with the bases loaded in the 5th. Jimmy Herget would promptly unload the bases. By the way, keep this balk he made in the back of your mind. I'm not going to say anything about the lineup because there's no reason to. Nick Lodolo, yes, Nick freaking Lodolo takes a no-hitter into the 6th inning. Now, don't take my shock as a diss against the guy. Personally, I love him. He's one of my favorite pitchers. I might be one of his biggest fans outside of the state of Ohio, but his repertoire is flimsy at altitude. All I'm saying is he shouldn't be the type of pitcher who's taking no-hitters deep into games at Coors Field. But just look at this lineup right now, man. Michael Tolley is hitting cleanup. You got Kyle Farmer 5th. And then there's just 4 straight negative value hitters in the bottom of the order. This is tough. I have like 20 more weeks to go of this. I'm already at my wit's end. I got to be honest. Rockies went 0-6 this week, getting swept on the road by the Royals and at home by the Reds. Nothing about this team works. This team has no strengths. Every part of the roster is a weakness. They keep giving away outs that they can't afford to give. The one strength of this team at the beginning of the season was getting at least fine performances from the starters, whether it be Kyle Freeland or German Marquez. They don't even have that anymore. The starters have completely imploded this week. I will give them credit because last week I did say that the youth movement was a mistake, and they have proven me wrong largely. Player of the Week honors obviously is going to go to Jordan Beck. He was awesome. Really, really the only player worth watching on this team. I know you could say Amador had a great week, but he made a lot of costly errors against the Reds. I mean, this team is at a point where you don't even know how to conceptualize a win for them. The most clutch hitter on this team right now is Jacob Stallings. Jacob Stallings. This is, I just don't even know how this team is going to win a series. There's no saving the Rockies. I don't feel like I'm watching Major League Baseball. Watching Michael Tolley hit has made me want to become a soccer fan. I have lost all the light in my life watching this team. I still have 20 more weeks to go. It's just, I don't, like, I have a lot to say, but I also at the same time don't have a lot to say. They can't win on the road because they can't score runs, and they can't win at home because they can't prevent runs. We'll see. Braves are coming to town, so these are games that I do remember watching. I'm still going to watch the highlights for them. Don't you worry. I am simulating being a Rockies fan as much as I just want to skip it. I can't. So we'll see what they do against Atlanta. I mean, I already know what they do against Atlanta, but pretend I don't. Reliever Juan Mejia is called up from AAA. Bradley Blaylock is optioned. Week 5 was fun because it meant my Atlanta Braves were coming to town. However, this wasn't your usual powerhouse Braves team. This was a Braves team desperate to play a bottom dweller like the Rockies. Call Hunter Goodman a pilot because he knows a good hanger when he sees one. You know, if you squint, it's like you're watching Game 1 of the 1995 NLDS. Ryan Feltner, coming off his excellent start in Kansas City, puts up the classic chorus line where he didn't allow the long ball, limited the walks, and managed to strike a few guys out, but was chased after 4 1/3 because the Braves scattered 10 hits off of him. I noticed the Braves actually did a much better job patrolling the Coors outfield than the Rockies did this series. Braves take Game 2 as the German Marquez nightmare season continues. It's at this point where the greater baseball world is starting to become hip to the Rockies' dire start. Enough teams have played them, and it's absolutely jarring. Like, from a mere aesthetic perspective, seeing that record of 4-25. This team needs a stopper at any cost. That is now their second 8-game losing streak of the season. We're still in April, folks. There will be 17 teams who won't even experience a single 7-game losing streak over the entire season. This team needed a stopper, and they received one in Chase Dollander. He absolutely shoved. Sure, he got some batted ball luck, but I'll never fault a Rockies pitcher for needing some luck to get by. He did have to leave early with a cracked nail, but what a statement outing from the former Volunteer. Chris Sale was equally effective against a broken offense, but the Rockies held their lead thanks to a Brenton Doyle solo jack in the third. So this was a treat. We got the rare Coors pitching duel. In fact, we've only seen the scorer lower hold 43 times in the history of the stadium. The team heads west to face the division rival San Francisco Giants for a 4-gamer. Not really much to say about this series besides allowing more first inning runs, Jordan Beck losing a ball in the sun, which leads to a 4-run inning. There was one nice development. Ryan McMahon broke out of his slump by walloping a 92-mile-per-hour fastball down the middle. Baby steps. He was starting to become MLB's first true two-way player. Just walks and strikeouts. His cross-the-diamond counterpart, Michael Toglia, responded by going 0 for 12 with 7 strikeouts and 3 walks. I'm starting to think the homer he hits every 2 weeks doesn't justify what he does in the other 96% of his at-bats. Rockies leave San Francisco losing 3 out of 4. Still searching for that first series win. We are in May so far, just to show how bad it's gotten for this team. Player of the week, definitely Chase Dollander. I mean, what a performance when the team needed him the most. I mean, they are asking a lot of this rookie. Ryan McMahon, I mean, it's good to see him kind of break out of his slump. I never want to see Michael Toglia play baseball again. I feel for German Marquez. I think this team is less than the sum of their parts because they do have interesting players. Jordan Beck, he's been fun. He's been really fun. He's been having a really good stretch. Brenton Doyle when he's on. But again, you have just too many zeros. I mean, you're giving way too many at-bats to guys like Jacob Stallings and Michael Toglia and now Nick Martini and Kyle Farmer. Even though he was your most productive hitter for the first 2 weeks of the season, which isn't really saying a lot, he has reverted back to being Kyle Farmer. Still looking for the first series win. Still looking for this team to score more than 5 runs on the road, which I know they did against the Dodgers, but oh my gosh, it's just, give me something. Give me something, Rockies. Ryan Feltner is placed on the 15-day IL. Bradley Blaylock is recalled. Welcome back, Bradley Blaylock. The Gritty Tigs come to town for a 3-gamer in Coors. The Rockies are spared from facing Tarek Skubal, but are not spared from a Game 1 postponement. Chase Dollander, looking to build from his previous start, sees all that outing's good luck completely reverse. Ryan McMahon's April showers seem to be behind him, and man, not to sound like a broken record, but I'm telling y'all, when he gets a hold of one, it really feels like he could have had a 40-homer campaign in a Rockies uniform if only he had a better coaching staff game planning behind him. It's a tie game in the 9th, and the Rockies send up Kyle Farmer, who is pinch hitting for Sean Bouchard, who pinch hit for designated hitter Nick Martini in the 5th, with the game-winning run sitting on second. The Tigers intentionally walked Michael Toglia to get to his spot. Jordan Beck looks like a paper tiger when he bobbles a pop fly in the 10th. I love the man, he's got spunk, but he needs to learn how to call off his teammates. Tigers in 10. Jack White was at this game, by the way. The man who wrote Blue Orchid, as well as that song every fan base adopted as their anthem, watched 2025 Rockies baseball. Just brutal. First inning runs play Kyle Freeland again in Game 1 of the doubleheader. Alan Trejo tries to play shuffleboard, and the result is whatever the hell this is. The offense stays colder and flatter than a Coors Light, and Nick Martini is still this team's designated hitter. Tigers take both games of the doubleheader with a combined score of 21-3. I don't even feel comfortable comparing this to a football score because I'm not sure the football version of the Rockies would even snag that field goal. Kyle Freeland addresses the fan base directly in an emotional post-game presser.
Keep believing in us. Keep riding. Thanks, Kyle.
The Padres come to town for a picturesque weekend series in May. For most baseball fans, this is the apex of the season. Weather is perfect, injuries haven't started to pile up quite yet, and there's still enough time where even middling teams have yet to be buried in the standings. For the Rockies, though, this is their lowest point. Game 1 is very similar to the game against the Giants, in which the Rockies had the chance to close out the 5th inning on a double play, but the defense makes yet another mental mistake, leading to yet another crooked number. Game 2 is the one we all remember. It's when the secret was fully out. The Rockies could no longer hide the fact that they were chasing infamy. Bradley Blaylock was making the spot start for the injured Ryan Feltner. His loss is going to be a huge blow to this rotation because he was absorbing some valuable innings even at altitude. Now, we all know about the 21 runs the Padres scored. This was the second time the staff had allowed 21 runs in a single day this week. We can't allow that to overshadow the fact that Padres' 5th starter Sandy Kolek threw up a Coors Complete game shutout. He is just the 12th non-Rocky starter ever to do so. Perfect games are almost as rare. In my mind, given the context that I have now, this game was just as much about the incompetence of the hitting as it was the state of disrepair the pitching staff was in. I love this moment when Michael Toglia locked the fuck in and made the scoop of his life. You know his legs were getting tired from standing all day. The Rockies do end the series on a positive note. Jordan Beck extends his hitting streak to 10 games, Hunter Goodman goes off, coming a single short of the cycle, and German Marquez gets a much needed bounce back start. Seth Halverson, who I do believe has the stuff to survive pitching at altitude, shuts the door for a convincing and much needed win. The writing was on the wall though. More heads needed to roll. Before the game, manager Bud Black and bench coach Mike Redmond were notified of their termination. Third base coach Warren Schaefer was informed he would be taking over as manager. Drastic and sudden changes like this are not common for the Rockies. Their familial mentality means there's going to be an abnormal amount of whiplash since a ton of players on this roster have spent their entire major league career under the wing of Bud Black. While I do believe a personnel shakeup was needed, Bud Black could only play the hand he was dealt. The real reason for this all-time awful start is quite simple, and an issue that literally any team at any given payroll is able to correct if they're savvy and understand the basic fundamentals of team building, which the Rockies do not. The issue is, of course, roster depth. It takes 40 guys to get through the grind of a 162-game season. Not every team can go out and roster a Mookie Betts or Fernando Tatis Jr. That is just a fact of life. However, guys like Mookie Betts can get hurt, and how a team handles their fill-in says a lot about their aptitude for roster construction. Sticking with the Mookie Betts example, let's say he goes down with an injury. After all, he's missed over 50 games the past 2 seasons. Veteran shortstop Miguel Rojas, making a reasonable $5 million per year, is ready to take over. He also plays every infield position if needed. Does a player like Miguel Rojas get you up in the morning? No. Does having a player like Miguel Rojas on your roster help your team win? Yes. Instead of giving valuable plate appearances and fielding reps to below league average Larry, you can absorb the blow by having a totally competent major leaguer step in. His game won't make the highlight reels, but it will help keep your team above water. The simplest distillation of baseball analytics, the ones and zeros of it all, is how many runs a player nets or costs you on offense, and how many runs they net or cost you on defense and pitching. That's it. 10 runs is theoretically good for 1 win. A player like Miguel Rojas fills in at shortstop and nets you 3 runs on offense while not costing you any on defense on an average week. It's not sexy and it doesn't seem like a lot, but let's compare it to the Rockies. Now, is it fair to compare the Dodgers and their industry-leading front office to the Rockies front office? No, but I'm going to do it anyway. Shortstop Ezequiel Tovar goes down in mid-April. The next up on the Rockies depth chart is Kyle Farmer, who is already filling in for the injured Thairo Estrada at second. He can fill in on a pinch, but this severely harms both second and shortstop defensively and offensively. Unlike Rojas, he's not someone who you're exactly comfortable with giving extended time to at short. Once Tovar hits the IL, the Rockies, who don't have any viable internal options, are forced to hit the scrap pile, and look, I hate referring to players as scrap metal, but I'm using this as an analogy. The harsh reality is there's a reason they were plucked from another team's roster. It sucks, but it's just the nature of the game. Alan Trejo is picked up from the Rangers and provides no runs on offense while providing roughly the same defense as Rojas. Suddenly, the 3 runs Rojas provides on offense a week looks indelible. Let's say they need to fill in for a month. That comes out to a rounded difference of 12 runs. A full win per month the Dodgers have over the Rockies just by virtue of better depth. Now allocate that over to 9 starting positions, 5 starting pitchers, and 6 plus relievers. I'm not saying every player is going to get hurt, but there's a ton of valuable plate appearances and innings given to the Miguel Rojas's and Alan Trejos of the world that add up over a 162 game season. Not everybody can afford a Mookie Betts, but everyone should be able to scrounge up a Miguel Rojas, whether in the free agent market, by making savvy trades, or through prospect depth, which, as we will see, the Rockies have none of. If you really want to know where the 2025 Rockies failed, look at who received the 11th most plate appearances on the team and compare their production to guys who got the 10th most PAs on other teams. Just having solid depth through identifying certain role players and stockpiling 45 future value prospects can be the difference between 43 and 63 wins. This is something smaller market teams like the Guardians and Brewers excel in. They use their own internal projection systems to create not only purpose-built, but flexible rosters that can absorb blows that inevitably come during the course of one of the most grueling schedules in professional sports. The Rockies came into the season as a run-of-the-mill bad team, but a lack of understanding over this one simple concept is what led them to joining a category of their own when it comes to mediocre baseball. A category occupied by the 1899 Cleveland Spiders, the 2003 Detroit Tigers, and of course, the 2024 Chicago White Sox. The Rockies begin their week by optioning Bradley Blaylock and Juan Mejia to the psych ward and calling up right-hander Anthony Molina and left-handed pitching prospect Brian Rollison. Alright. Team heads to Arlington to face the Rangers. Chase Dollander, somehow finding himself in the role of stopper, again, slaps his dick in the face of the Rangers offense. If you want to have yourself a good weep, look at Chase Dollander's game logs. Then sort them by game score, and look at how many ats he has at the top and home games he has at the bottom. As usual, the Rockies offense is put face to the floor, this time by Tyler Mahle, save for a Nick Martini single. Yes, it's May 12th, and he is still taking reps at DH. Lord have mercy! The next day they are snuffed out by Jack Leiter, then Patrick Corbin to get swept out of Texas. The only other story of note is that Ryan Rollison, the Rockies' first-round pick in the 2018 draft, made his long-awaited Major League debut out of the bullpen. This is after a myriad of injuries almost ended his career. He's another guy who has fascinating stuff, but simply doesn't have the fastball to survive pitching at altitude. It seems the Rockies' rocky start could be behind them. Tovar is activated off the IL, as is Tyler Freeman. Bye-bye, Alan Trejo. You set a really good example in that previous segment. Aaron Schunk is also reinstated. He was injured, I guess. On top of that, left-handed pitching prospect Carson Palmquist is getting the call. He gets his Major League debut in Game 1. He is another guy with fascinating stuff coming from a funky sidearm delivery very similar to Nick Lodolo's. But yet again, his fastball, even with his crazy extension, is not enough to survive pitching at altitude. The Rockies do know that they are allowed to roster more than one starter who throws 95 miles per hour, right? He gets shelled in his debut, and the Rockies offense collects another 10-plus strikeout performance, this time against Corbin Burns and company. The next day, Schaefer shakes up the lineup by giving Brenton Doyle a much-needed day off, putting Kyle Farmer at first because he especially became sick of watching Michael Toglia hit, and the offense responds by turning into an absolute unit and going scorched earth off of Zach Gallen and friends. This game had first inning runs galore, more mental mistakes, more high leverage at bats given to Kyle Farmer, but even the Kyle Farmers of the world can come through in the big moment. That, on top of Jordan Beck's third multi-homer game in a month, led to a wild Rockies victory. A huge first win for Warren Schaefer. Does the Rockies offense build on this momentum? Of course not. This was another game I watched in full. I chose this one specifically because they set a franchise record in offensive shutouts, and I wanted to find the most infuriating. Merrill Kelly no-hits the offense through 5 innings. I like Merrill Kelly because he's the type of pitcher who will exploit the shit out of a bad offense. It got so bad that we have Nick Martini, who is, yes, still on this roster, bunting for hits. 24-year-old Jordan Beck gets outmaneuvered by the 36-year-old Kelly. Oh, and they leave the tying run on third to end the game. This one was, in fact, the most infuriating. I mean, what is there left to say about this team? Wasted a ton of good starts. Warren Schaefer is making more sensible moves. He's giving guys days off. He's not afraid to shuffle around the lineup. He's not afraid to play around with bullpen roles. Ryan Rollison looked really good. Really inspiring story for him. I'm going to give Player of the Week co-honors to Chase Dollander and Ryan Rollison. Their one win this week was fun, granted. They actually were able to come back and hold on to a lead for the first time all season. I mean, the shutouts are just piling up at this point. The 9th inning in Sunday's game tells you everything you need to know. I mean, they load the bases, and they just don't have that guy who can either pop you a homer or even give you a good fly ball. I'm not even halfway through here, and I'm already ready for this to be over. It's at this point when I decided I needed to have some fun with the experiment, because we weren't even a third through the season, and this team was already destroying my will to live. I decided might as well fully immerse myself and do what the great people of Denver do in order to make it through another lost Rockies season. Drink beer, baby! So for the next 2 series, I have to take a drink of the oh-so-sweet Coors Light if I witness a strikeout with runners on and less than 2 out, first inning runs allowed by a Rockies pitcher, defensive miscues, bullpen blowing leads, Michael Toglia strikeouts, and high leverage at-bats given to either Nick Martini, Kyle Farmer, or Jacob Stallings. But first, it's transaction time. Chase Dollander is placed on the IL with Rockieitis, and Juan Mejia is back from the psych ward. No word from Bradley Blaylock quite yet. The Phillies come to town to continue their Rockies torment. Kyle Freeland has a much-needed bounce-back start. After Ezequiel Tovar hits his second homer of the season, Christopher Sanchez sits down the next 7 before Beck and Tovar strike again. Now that's where it's at. But the fun won't last because Seth Halverson starts leaking elbow grease and the Phillies take advantage. The reign of terror continues in Game 2. We get more first-inning runs. Jesus Lizard Luzardo drops a magnificent 2-hitter against the Rockies offense. I noticed they looked the most lost at the plate against Luzardo specifically, which is saying a lot because they look lost against everybody. Carson Palmquist gets the Game 3 start. I'm going to avoid saying bad things about the guy because he's got such a unique style, and I'm all about my baseball unicorns. But please, God, put him on a team where he's allowed to succeed. I suffered for the man. Just put him on a real team, please. He could be the next Tim Hill. The series ends with, what else? Another shutout. The offense wastes a good start from German Marquez, who seems to finally be rounding back into form after that all-time awful start to the season. Yeah, so one series, I'm already through basically 2 1/3 beers, so it tells you everything you need to know. The Yankees come to town. Tanner Gordon is making the spot start for Chase Dollander. Remember the last time the Rockies had to use a spot starter against a potent offense? Still no word from Bradley, by the way. But this time, I will gladly report that Tanner Gordon's mental health will stay intact because he put his nuts on the mound against New York. Ron McMahon drives in 2 with a 2-out double in the 5th. He's having a good stretch at the plate. The Rockies relief corps also rounding into form, headlined by new closer, the mustachioed Zach Agnos seals the victory. Woo! A Rockies win, let's go. They are now a victory away from double digits in the win column. It is May 23rd. The next day, the Yankees throw the pile driver at Kyle Freeland, Angel Shivii, and Ryan Rollison. And stop me if you heard this one before, but a left-handed pitcher dominates the Rockies offense at Coors. I miss you, Max. The last Rockies player to win the batting title, DJ LeMahieu, had a fine revenge game at the plate, even though I don't think the Rockies are a powerful enough entity to earn having revenge taken upon them. It's like wanting revenge against a lost dog. We conclude drinking game week with a close one. First inning runs are a given with this team, but the Rockies put pressure on by loading the bases in the first, entering the second with a lead for the first time all season. A Mickey Moniak home run cuts the lead to 1 run in the 9th, but Hunter Goodman weakly grounds out to Luke Weaver with runners on first and second to end the game. Geez, not even the simple joy of drinking makes this team fun. To recap the drinking game portion of watching the 2025 Rockies, granted, it was 7 games. I mean, they played a 4-game series against the Phillies and a 3-game series against the Yankees. I went through 3 bottles of beer, watching, again, the highlights, and I don't think my requirements were that strict. I know some of them were geared specifically towards the Rockies. I mean, one of them was literally Michael Toglia strikeouts, which, I mean, this man's striking out at a 40% clip. I mean, just think about how much alcohol you would consume if you were to do a drinking game during the season, watching these games in full. take away a couple. Take away strikeouts with runners on and less than 2 out, and high leverage at bats coming to Nick Martini, Kyle Farmer, and Jacob Stallings. We'll just do first inning runs, defensive miscues, bullpen blowing leads, and Michael Toglia strikeouts. You're still going to be plastered by, I don't know, like the 3rd inning. In conclusion, the Rockies are still searching for their first series win. As a reminder, we're nearly in June by this point. They're still looking for their first series win of the season. Still retain how I felt about them when I made the Disaster Players video, where they just feel like it feels very manufactured how they're so bad that they're good. It feels artificial to me, but yeah, Rockies forever. Well, it happened, y'all. The Rockies agreed to a deal with infielder Orlando Arcia, fresh off his breakup with the Braves. This is their answer to Miguel Rojas. Victor Vodnik has also been activated. The Rockies travel to Chicago to face the Cubs, the team who is arguably the most affected by their geography besides Colorado. I'm just saying, Manning Wrigley's outfield is not for the weak of heart. This was the point watching this team start to make me physically ill. We're nearly in June, and a series victory feels so out of reach. This roster's 2 All-Stars are just all out of sorts. Ezequiel Tovar is bunting now, and Brenton Doyle is swinging a pool noodle. The only positive from this series are that the Rockies got good starts from German Marquez and Tanner Gordon, despite just more and more first inning runs, which I guess we have to expect at this point. And there's also Mickey Moniak. Yeah, remember him? He's starting to heat up. Rocks are swept out of Chicago. They take their sorrows to face a hot New York Mets team. Some interesting roster moves before the series. Thairo Estrada is activated. We also bring in a familiar face when outfielder Sam Hilliard is recalled. Adiel Amador is optioned, and finally, at long last, Nick Martini is designated for assignment. It's over. To pay my respects, here is a quick Nick Martini 2025 Rockies highlight reel.
Teammates in Cincinnati. This is pulled toward the hole on through base hit. Goodman coming home, and the throw will be way late, and the Rockies. Martini offered at it.
Game 1 is a fun matchup between childhood friends Kyle Freeland and David Peterson, who both grew up in the Denver area. Freeland throws up a solid start, but the offense again just fails to capitalize in any moment. Welcome to the 2025 Rockies Thairo Estrada. Sam Hilliard homered though, so that was cool. Antonio Smelzatella gets the start in game 2, and stop me if you've heard this one before, allowed 4 runs in the first. Granted, Brenton Doyle took the rare bad route on a Brett Beatty fly ball, not that it would have been an easy play otherwise. Ezequiel Tovar hit his 3rd homer of the season, so I don't know, that was cool, I guess. Carson Palmquist is once again the unlucky rookie who must stop this team from being swept out of another town. He would not be successful. Tyler Freeman hit his 1st homer of the season, so that was cool. Just please, I need to watch some good baseball. God, what's going on? Yeah, they got swept by the Cubs. They got swept by the Mets. Yeah, I mean, God forbid you get a good start from a starter, which, you know, they got a couple. Player of the week, I guess. I'll give it to Tanner Gordon. Got Ezequiel Tovar bunting with runners on. This is the best hitter on the team, which isn't saying a lot because he's like not that good of a hitter. He's a good ball player, but he's not that good of a hitter. Don't ask the Rockies for directions because you'll wind up in Albuquerque. Hey, if you know, you know. Report back with you all next week. Owner Dick Monfort has disappeared from the public eye in the wake of his team's horrendous start. All the heads that could roll so far did, but this team is every bit as bad in June as they were in April. Or so we think. Something big happened. Michael Toglia was sent down. Thank God. He was on pace to be this team's Chris Davis. You do not want to be the Chris Davis of your team at the ripe age of 26. In his place is former top prospect Keston Hiura, someone I argued should have been signed by the Rockies way before I fully understood the types of players the Rockies should be targeting. But more on that later. The Rockies travel to Miami to take on the Marlins. I don't really know how many more ways in which I can phrase that they gave up runs in the first inning, but they did. But as I alluded to, something changed. Off the back of Hunter Goodman's 2-yabo performance, the Rockies come back and win their 10th game of the season. We are a couple weeks out from the halfway point. Chase Dollander returns to the mound in Game 2. He's definitely rusty and can only get through 3 innings due to a hard pitch count, but he keeps them in the game. The hero from the day before, Hunter Goodman, hits the game-winning blast off of Anthony Bender. The Rockies have just won themselves a series. It is June 3rd. Even better, they go out and do the same exact thing the next day with the clean-shaven Kyle Freeland, a huge break thanks to Lone Depot shoddy construction, and a clutch relay from Jordan Beck and Orlando Arcia, which I will concede he still has a rocket attached to him. The Rockies get not only the first series win, but first sweep of the season after they released Nick Martini and sent down Michael Toglia. Just saying. Infield prospect Ryan Ritter is called up. Ezekiel Tovar, who has clearly not been right, goes back on the IL with a strained left oblique. Catcher Jacob Stallings is released from the roster, and Braxton Fulford is back in as the backup catcher. The Rockies travel back to Denver for a meeting with the Mets. Hey, didn't we just see these guys? In a bold strategy, Warren Schaefer deploys Ryan Rollison to open for Antonio Senzatella. Normally a manager would do this in order to minimize the exposure a starter faces second or third time through the order. This time, it was done in order to minimize his exposure first time through. I like it. Brendan Doyle's brutal slump continues as he is 11 for his last 66 with a 531 OPS. This is a player who is supposed to be the lineup's spark plug. The team sees some heroic performances from the bullpen. That is, until Zach Agnos, who was still serving as this team's closer, I guess. Guys, it was fun for a second, but come on. As much as I belittle this bullpen, there were at least 3 guys who are better equipped to close games. Maybe Dick Monfort wanted a closer that reminded him of Raleigh Fingers. Rockies lose 4-2. The offense does what it's best at in Game 2, being mid as hell. Ryan McMahon hits an Oppo tank, and a Rockies fan actually catches it this time. Game 3 sees Chase Dollander with a longer leash, but after a relatively clean first, he gets jumped in the second and third. The bullpen outside of Victor Vodnik crumbles behind him. On a more positive note, Jordan Beck, after an especially rough road trip, collected his second straight 2-hit game to bump his OPS back over 800. Okay, so some good things, some bad things. Week started out amazing. They swept the Marlins. Love that. Hunter Goodman, what a week he had. This roster is finally shaping up. They went from having the floor of the worst team in MLB history by a country mile to the 2012 Astros. When you think about it, that's a really big improvement. Unfortunately, the Mets come to town, and after embarrassing them in Queens, they also embarrassed them on Blake Street. I mean, the defense has been better. This is actually now a fairly solid defensive unit now that we have Tyro Estrada and Orlando Arcia is getting reps all over the infield. I mean, he even got a start at first base, which is just insane. That is some dirty work right there, but I applaud it. Let's just throw everything at the wall and see what sticks. So Warren Schaefer, even though there are a lot of decisions that are out of his control, it's good to see him turn some levers here. So yeah, series against the Mets was just forgettable, but at least they got their first series win. That's what matters. The Giants come to town. Carson Palmquist, who has had just about the worst start to an MLB career I've possibly ever seen, gets the start. Groundhog Day continues for Mr. Palm Springs, allowing another first inning run. Ryan Ritter, getting some run at shortstop for the injured Tovar, ties it up in the second. The Rockies make this one a fairly competitive affair with a couple of homers and triples. Unfortunately, Zach Agnos, who I guess we're still doing the closer thing with, cannot shut the door, leaving Victor Vodnik, who should be this team's closer, to pick up the pieces. But he drops them as well. Rockies leave the game-tying run 90 feet away. Kyle Freeland takes the bump in Game 2. It wouldn't be a Rockies game without allowing a first-inning run, and Willy Adames understood the assignment. For the second night in a row, the Rockies made this one competitive by scratching across 4 runs in the third. That Keston Hiura 2-out RBI single felt like a weight was lifted. At least they're losing better. Unfortunately, we get the Zach Agnos disaster class 2 nights in a row. Game 3 has a hilarious premise because Orlando Arcia is starting at first. Let me repeat that. Orlando Arcia is starting a Major League Baseball game at first base. I know he started there a couple times earlier, but I kept thinking there's no way this is something they're sticking with, and yeah, looks like they are for the time being. After a solid outing by Antonio Senzatella's standards, the Rockies are down 5-7 going to the bottom of the 9th. This is when the Giants have a sudden complete defensive breakdown. This allows first baseman Orlando Arcia to come up with the bases loaded and tying run on second. He delivers. Rockies avoid the sweep. So you might have noticed that the Rockies give up a lot of runs in the first inning, and that's because they do. In fact, the only team in MLB history to allow more first inning runs than the 2025 Colorado Rockies were the 2000 Texas Rangers, a team whose pitching was so bad that not even the greatest shortstop of all time could save them. Now we have to take these numbers with a grain of salt. At altitude, it's expected that runs will inflate across the board. If you'll notice, this chart is littered with Rockies teams of past yore. The expectation is that the offense receives the same boost that is taken from the pitchers here. And that is true for most Rockies teams. Ouch. There's something to be said about losing the game in the 9th inning. The deflation of having the lead for 8 innings only to blow it at the last exit. But we need to have the conversation about how demoralizing it is to lose a game in the 1st inning, especially when you cannot trust your offense to make up the deficit. What makes so many of these games unwatchable, in my opinion, is the number of times they're basically over after 1 inning. The rest of the game becomes a sleepwalk towards yet another loss. It's one thing to lose well, it's another thing to lose poorly. And as a fan, it's hard to watch truly uncompetitive baseball. The Rockies travel to Cobb County to face the Braves. Ryan McMahon takes Bryce Elder deep into the 1st inning of Game 1. Like I said, when he gets a hold of one, I mean, good God, this guy really has top shelf power. I would love to see what he could do on a team that knows how to work with him. Because it's the Rockies though, the classic Rockies, German Marquez allows another 1st inning run. After that 1st inning though, somehow, some way, he locks the fuck in and gets through 5, only allowing 5 base runners after the 1st. Orlando Arcia also got a nice standing ovation from the Braves crowd. I also remember applauding him from my couch. As the story goes, we get bullpen implosions, errors from pitchers, bad throws, more bad throws. You wake up from the barrage of bad baseball to see the Rockies lost 12-5. Chase Dollander takes the bump in Game 2 and delivers a solid outing, minus getting owned by the Braves' top 3 hitters. The offense takes another day of PTO. They are racking those up. I mean, they gotta have maybe 8 PTO hours left at this point. Tyro Estrada has barely hit since coming back. Ryan McMahon is awful outside of the one moonshot he hits a week. The team struck out 19 times against Spencer Strider and company. Strider has been someone who has just tortured the Rockies with extreme impunity. I know it's just 3 starts, but get this. His strikeout rate against them is 50%. The Rockies played maybe one of the funniest games of the year on Sunday. First off, they made some roster moves. Zach Agnos, who less than a week ago was getting reps at closer, was optioned to the minors. Austin Gomber was activated off the 60-day IL, with Kyle Friedland put on the 15-day IL with lower back stiffness. Gomber gets the start in Game 3. He dominates. Does he get a little bit of batted ball luck? Yes. But I'm never going to fault a Rockies pitcher for needing some luck to get through a start, even on the road. The Rockies offense scores a few runs off of Grant Holmes, one being from another Ryan McMahon Ultra Beam moonshot. Man, this guy would have crushed on the 1996 Rockies, but that's not the headliner. Grant Holmes struck out 15 Rockies hitters, leaves down by 1 in the 7th, and the Rockies finally get to be the beneficiaries of a bullpen meltdown. They become just the 2nd team in MLB history to score 10 plus runs while striking out 16 plus times twice in a single season. The first being the 2019 Milwaukee Brewers. Ryan Ritter had his first career multi-hit game, so good for him. This team has a lot of Ryans, by the way. The Rocks get their patented Sunday victory. Yeah, this team is becoming a lot more watchable. Yeah, I mean, the psychosis I experienced earlier is in the past now, so greener pastures ahead. Like I said, rounding into shape, bring it on. Michael Toglia is officially recalled. Lord have mercy on our souls. The Rockies make the trip up I-85 to I-95 towards Washington, D.C. I swear Hunter Goodman would steal the MVP from Shohei Ohtani's fingers if he only got to play NL East teams. Carson Palmquist is so close to his first passable career start in appearance number 6, but 4th inning homer troubles leave him just short. Mickey Moniak gets his own weightlifting swing to put the Rockies up in the 9th. Michael motherfrickin' Toglia gets the diving stop to secure the Rockies' 15th win of the season. It is June 16th. The team they are playing is 1 game out of last in their division and have twice as many wins. Warren Schaefer plays his hot hand by hitting Mickey Moniak leadoff, a move I strongly encourage. Just give whoever's seeing beach balls right now the most plate appearances. Simple. Love it. The Nationals score a run after a brutal dropped fly from Brenton Doyle, putting the cherry on top of just an awful slump this man's in. We get some Michael on Michael crime in the 4th. Is this the real Michael Toglia we've been missing out on? The Rockies hold a breath as both Ryan McMahon and Thairo Estrada have injury scares in the 6th inning. But then the highlight of the season so far occurs in the top of the 7th. The Rockies break out for 4 homers. Fine, it was against the underbelly of the worst pitching staff in the majors besides the Rockies, but this was some much needed relief for a team who's struggling to average a homer per game. Rockies win their 3rd in a row. German Marquez throws 6 innings of shutout ball, while Michael Toglia adds his 3rd homer in the past 2 games. Chase Dollander isn't being brought in to avoid the sweep, but to secure one for once. He absolutely delivers. Honestly, if he didn't have to pitch any games at Coors, I'm positive he would have received down ballot Rookie of the Year votes. The offense reverts back to their usual selves, struggling to score runs off of this time. Who else but Trevor Williams? They're struggling to score off of Trevor Williams. But the bullpen led by Jimmy Herget is nails. They can only hold on for so long though. By the way, I highly recommend watching matchups between 2 bad teams. It is quite a blast to see who chokes the game harder, and this series contained a lot of fun mishaps from both sides. The Rockies head back to Colorado to face the Snakes. So remember when I noticed how this team had a lot of Ryans on it? Well, apparently so did the Secretary of Ryan Meetup, a non-profit dedicated to uniting the most Ryans in one place. I'm not making this up. I'll link their website in the description. They wanted to set the Guinness record for most Ryans at a single sporting event. And what better place to do it than with a team already stacked with 3 Ryans of their own. And let's not forget about sideline analyst and former Rocky Ryan Spilborghs. Ryan McMahon, embracing his true Ryan, ran into a Zach Gallen changeup. Just a special moment in a week full of special moments. Ryan Ritter added 2 hits of his own, and even Ryan Rollison got into the action. This might be the greatest night in the history of Ryans. Unfortunately, in Austin, Gomber got lit up for 9 runs, and the Rockies lost 14-8. Carson Palmquist got the starting game too, which is great news for Ketel Marte, who not only eats pitchers like him for breakfast at sea level, but they're able to keep the doctor away from him at altitude. D-backs take game 2. Mickey Moniak delivers yet another key home run in game 3 to give the Rockies their Sunday win. Also, need to keep eyes on Tyler Freeman, who has quietly been scorching hot at the plate. Yeah, just as I alluded to, the Rockies are rounding into shape. They went from being just a plain bad team to at least a fun bad team. Huge week from Mickey Moniak. Obviously, he is the player of the week. Also, shout out Hunter Goodman. Like, the days of seeing Nick Martini and Jacob Stallings are over. You know, yeah, you could say that most of their success this week was just facing an even more deplorable Nationals team. I get that. Wins are wins. And I honestly think if the Rockies' April roster played the Nats' June roster, the Rockies would be lucky if they tied the series. This team is still really bad, but at least they're watchable, which is a huge step forward. The Dodgers come to town at the height of their powers, so you probably know how this one ends. A defensive implosion in Game 1 wrecks what was otherwise a decent German Marquez start, in the process also nullifying what were amazing performances at the plate from Tyler Freeman, Jordan Beck, and Michael Toglia. Yes, I am glazing Michael Toglia now. An umpire or 2 should have been fired after the second game. Chase Dollander and Yoshinobu Yamamoto have themselves a sequel to the Coors pitching duel, but Mother Nature has other plans. I mean, you cannot make this up. God himself is rooting against the Rocks. The umpires call a delay only after the Dodgers get to take advantage. What was a great pitcher's duel through 6 innings turns into a laugher. Clayton Kershaw, like a lion playing with its food, straddles towards strikeout number 3000 in Game 3, but decides he'd rather claim it against a real team, like the Chicago White Sox. Brenton Doyle does tag him for a homer though. He's starting to round back into form. After starting June 8 for 65 with 3 extra base hits, he's 4 for his last 14 with a homer and a double. Dodgers sweep the Rockies out of Denver. I can't believe this team challenged the Dodgers for the division in 2018. Some big news in Rockies baseball both on and off the field. Off the field, Dick Monfort's son Walker is promoted to executive vice president. On the field, Hunter Goodman is day-to-day. He'll probably miss the next series. And Kyle Freeland is activated off the IL. The Rockies travel to what used to be the other stadium sponsored by a brewery before experiencing the largest drop in naming rights aura. Kyle Freeland gets the start a healthy man, hopefully. Unfortunately, he gets shellacked by Jackson Chourio and company. Jimmy Herget, who came into the season having only 1 career balk to his name, is ejected when he is called on his second balk of the year. Now, remember when I told you to keep the first one in mind? What's interesting about this one is it's the same ump who called the first balk, Paul Clemens, this time as the first base umpire. What I find fascinating about this ordeal is the specificity of these calls. When you're pitching with runners on, you have to declare if you're going to be pitching from the windup instead of the stretch. Herget's issue is that he made the switch pitching from the windup without declaring it in both instances. I find it amusing because Herget was given a clear explanation the first time it happened, and kind of knew he messed up the second time around, so he treats Paul Clemens more like the class snitch. Just funny little details and storylines you only pick up from watching a team over the course of a full season. Not much to say about Game 2. Quinn Priester cauterizes the Rockies. They rack up another double-digit strikeout total. I don't know. I don't enjoy watching baseball anymore. This time they call in veteran German Marquez to aid in avoiding the sweep. I can't believe these two teams met up in the 2018 NLDS. The world you grew up in truly no longer exists. Game 3 was a nail-biter. Warren Schaefer and Tyler Freeman set the tone by getting ejected in the third. I swear, this team put up a better fight against the umpires than they did the Brewers this series. Down 1 run though, Orlando Arcio launches a hanging Trevor McGill breaking ball against his former team. The extra innings are a back and forth affair. Isaac Collins makes Jordan Beck and his former team feel like a bunch of losers baby by making a great running catch, but it is Kyle Farmer who smokes a single into center to give the Rockies a lead they won't relinquish. Colorado avoids the sweep. Look, they went from playing a pretty bad team to an okay team, and then they faced the two teams who appeared in the NLCS. What did you expect? Look, if the Rockies can be 4-3 against the bad teams, and then 1-5 against the good teams, that's an acceptable level of play for this team. Player of the week, we'll just give it to Orlando Arcia. I mean, he really just had that one swing, but without it, the Rockies were facing an 0-6, so nobody else really deserved it, in my opinion. We know what this team is at this point. They're basically just the doormat for the rest of the league, so pretty good Sunday game, though. The Sunday winning is back on, so we love to see that. Rockies acquire catcher Austin Nola. A team that already needs to give every bit of support they can to their pitching staff is now rostering their fourth catcher in the first half. They are also calling up prospect Yanquiel Fernandez. He's a somewhat exciting prospect with plus power and a plus arm, but minus everything else. The Rockies also struck a deal with York Space Systems for their very first jersey patch. The Rockies travel back to Colorado to take on the Astros. Hunter Goodman stays hot with a pair of homers in Game 1, and Jordan Beck cracks 5 hits. Hell yes! I hope you were able to hear that. But if one pillar holds strong, that means another has to collapse, and that, unfortunately, is Chase Dollander tonight, who has no answers for pitching at altitude. At least the Rockies are playing hungry. One of the most bizarre plays of the season happens in the 5th inning. Jake Myers turns what should have been a ringing double off the wall into a double play. Replay does overturn the catch, but he was still able to record the force out at second during the confusion. Astros take Game 1. Yanquiel Fernandez makes his debut in Game 2. It ends with him getting pinch hit for Kyle Farmer. Rockies lose. Alright, I'm gonna write my 6-word story about Jordan Beck. Good bat, liability, and left. Hey, that was 5 words. Let's go. We see shades of Cameron Beltran when Doyle screams at Beck, "So why don't you kill me?" and Beck nearly does. Rockies pull through in this one. Tyler Freeman stays hot. Next up, we get a heavily mocked 4th of July weekend matchup between the White Sox and Rockies. But there's something quite beautiful about these two teams facing each other over one of the only major holidays MLB gets to lay claim to. Two franchises who took totally different routes to achieve historical mediocrity. One franchise built on conditional loyalty, the other on unconditional loyalty. One who's existed before the invention of the Ford Model T, the other who was brought into this world 8 years after the Ford Taurus started production. The White Sox provide a glimmer of hope for the Rockies. Just a year ago, they were swimming in the same disgusting poop-filled waters the Rockies find themselves in now, but are making their way upstream. They're not particularly close to the promised land, but it is in their sightlines, if ever so faintly. This series saw the major league debut for top White Sox prospect Colson Montgomery, reliever Jordan Leisure clutch up over 1 2/3 of an inning, and catcher Edgar Cuero's first major league home run. Meanwhile, the Rockies witnessed an awful play by Yanquiel Fernandez, Ryan McMahon continue his second prolonged slump of the season, and Chase Dollander unable to work his way out of the 4th. The White Sox are a good example of the fruits you can reap by admitting to failure. When I covered them in the series 2 years ago, things looked bleak. Now there's finally some light at the end of the tunnel. Sox take 2 games before the Rockies secure their Sunday win. We are safely through the midpoint of watching every godforsaken Rockies game in 2025. And The question most of you are going to ask is, has it broken you yet? At times it has, but I'm starting to really connect with the individual players just as I would my own baseball team. Hunter Goodman has been fun to watch. Jordan Beck is fun to watch even when he's playing poorly. Actually, especially when he's playing poorly, at least in the outfield. This week they managed to avoid 2 sweeps. We take that. The White Sox are a team the Rockies can learn a lot from. Not many teams can learn a lot from the White Sox, but the Rockies are one of them. At some point I'm just going to get tired, but I have not reached that point yet, and I believe my breaking point is past me, but we shall see. Well, it happened. Chase Dollander was optioned back to AAA. It's probably best to not work your potential future ace into the ground during a lost season when clearly he needs a reset. In his place will be Bradley Blaylock, who has just been recalled from the psych ward. Sam Hilliard was also outrated AAA, and Ryan Feltner was reinstated from the 60-day IL and sent to AAA as well. The Purple Row head to Fenway for a 2007 World Series rematch. Brenton Doyle gets the Rockies on the board with an RBI single. Maybe he's heating back up? However, Dick gives them fits, mowing through the minimum over the next 13 Rockies hitters. In the meantime, Roman Anthony crushes his first career homer off of Gomi. Something I noticed is that Austin Gomber has some of the most gut-wrenching homer reactions. It's great and also terrible at the same time. We'll keep an eye on them. Thairo Estrada does this awesome bullet time move at third, but it's not enough. Game 2, the Rockies lineup makes Brian Bayo look like Prime Pedro. Trevor Story unloads against his former team, and what was a highly competitive game through 5 innings turns into a laugher. Thank you, Juan Mejia and Jake Bird. Nice start for Kyle Freeland though, as well as Hunter Goodman, who cracked his 17th homer to put a dent in Brian Bayo's otherwise stellar outing. The two teams seemed to enjoy that game so much that they decided to run it back. The Rockies lineup made Lucas Giolito look like Curt Schilling. Defense has an all-time blooper reel moment courtesy of Orlando Arcia and Yanquiel Fernandez. Kyle Farmer hits his 4th homer of the season to raise his OPS back over 600, and Tyler Freeman increases his on-base streak to 23 games. That last one is actually pretty cool. But the rain came down, and we all know that symbolizes doom for this team. Rockies are swept out of Beantown. They make the trip over to Cincinnati, hoping this Scarlet-themed team gives them a better outcome heading into the All-Star break. They have to face Reds rookie Chase Burns, who has the kind of stuff to strike out every Rockies hitter he sees. Him and German Marquez do deliver us a pitcher's duel through 3 innings. Ron McMahon launches a Burns hanger to put the Rockies up. The Reds then hand the Rockies the lead in the 8th inning on a bases-loaded wild pitch. The game ups the crazy factor when Victor Vodnik gives up a double to the first hitter he sees in the 9th, and then strikes out 3 of the next 4 hitters to secure a tight victory. This was a fun game. Game 2 was one of the most positive losses I've ever seen this team experience. History will forget how good Tyler Freeman was from June to July, but I won't. Ryan Ritter gets his first career homer. It was a 354-foot pop-up, but hey, we take those here. Congratulations, Ryan. You will always remember that one. But the real story was Bradley Blaylock, who, in his first start since, threw 5 2/3 of an innings worth of 1-run ball. I mean, look at his expression when Warren Schaefer takes him out. That's what this sport is all about, man. I'm happy for Blaylock. Unfortunately, Victor Vodnik couldn't recreate the magic 2 days in a row, and Orlando Arcia can't come up with a grounder to challenge the game-winning run. Would have been a tough play anyway. In Game 3, Austin Gomber plays the hits, giving up a leadoff homer to TJ Friedl. Ryan Ritter boots a grounder, Yanquiel Fernandez strikes out in a key spot, and Tyler Freeman snaps his on-base streak. Not a great way to enter the All-Star break. A brutal sweep at Fenway Park, followed up by a competitive series against the Reds. But at least this week, a majority of the games felt winnable by the 6th inning, compared to earlier, where they all felt losable in the 1st. So, credit to the Rockies, they've done a much better job at losing. It was good to see Bradley Blaylock get his comeback start. I mean, this is why you watch the game. Like I said, they're shoring up the zeros on the roster, just getting guys like Thairo Estrada back from injury and not having to roster guys like Nick Martini and Owen Miller and Alan Trejo, but hats off to them. So the Rockies had the 4th overall pick in the 2025 draft and 4 of the top 100. With the first pick, they selected shortstop Ethan Holiday, son of Rockies legend Matt Holliday. That was pretty cool. I genuinely hope he succeeds there. But look, even though I personally am getting more into draft and prospect analysis, that isn't really in the scope of this video. As a person who's speedrunning through the Rockies 2025 season, I figured it'd be a better use of my time to pool my ball knowledge, however much or little of it you think I have, into doing a Rockies fantasy draft. Anyone who's played MLB The Show or any of the 2K games for the old heads out there knows what a fantasy draft is. And no, we're not talking about the fantasy baseball you play on Yahoo or ESPN. Every player is taken off their current roster and placed in a draft. I want to share with you all how I would build a Rockies team if given a blank slate. As a soon-to-be 29-year-old struggling musician who produces silly little baseball videos to make ends meet, am I more qualified than anyone currently in the Rockies front office? Maybe. Now, I did set a few limitations for myself. First off is I'm not playing with unlimited funds. I set my cap at the largest Rockies payroll in team history, which they set in 2023, because I am trying to build an immediate winner here. I sourced players' 2026 salary data from Spotrac. The draft will be the classic snake format, and the Rockies will get the first pick. We're not doing any lottery bullshit for this one, no compensation picks. We're keeping it simple, because I'm kind of stupid. Keeping with simplicity, players will be ordered based on Fangraph WAR for the last 2 seasons. I also gave pitchers, both starters and relievers, a bit of a boost because their values tend to be a bit inflated in the market, and for good reason too. I don't think WAR accurately captures just how valuable starters and relievers are. I know I could order it based on true contract value and really get into the weeds, but that would be a ton of work, and this video has already taken long enough already. But I do want it to be clear, I am still trying to make this draft as accurate as possible. I can't just draft the top 10 players in the sport and call it a day. I'm also not trying to cheat the system either. I'm not going to say, oh hey, Ronald Acuna Jr. is available in the 5th round because he was injured in the last 2 seasons. Or go, oh, look, Roman Anthony just happens to be available in the 9th round because he debuted in July of last year. I'm not doing any of that chicanery. This is going to be a clean draft. I also realized after I did the draft that I could have just done WAR per game. I'm sorry. If I ever do this exercise next time, I will consider doing that format instead. This time I just had to use value judgments, and trust me, I had my own draft board. I knew the kind of players that I wanted to take anyway. A few more notes, I only am considering the team I want to field in 2026. And to the disappointment of you sickos out there, I'm only drafting a 26-man roster. I'm not doing a 40-man. I'm doing this strictly as a casual fan exercise. Let's try to build the best possible Rockies team. The strategy is fairly simple. My biggest priority on the position player side is contact over anything. The way the architects of Coors Field try to counteract balls carrying more was to create the biggest outfield in baseball. This means more ground to cover for the outfielders. It's why the Rockies have had disproportionately the highest batting average of balls in play at home, with only the Red Sox and their pinball machine of a stadium remotely close. I want to take advantage of that. I want to make the opposing outfielders sweat. We've seen teams that focus on contact put up video game numbers at Coors. I still want some pop, but contact is what I'm prioritizing. That goes hand in hand with my second priority, which is outfield defense. I need athletes out there who can cover some serious ground. Too many times I've seen crooked numbers thrown up against the Rockies staff because a corner outfielder is unable to track down a fly ball. Honestly, I'm willing to forgo some offensive upside if it means having a rangy defender. I'll get offense from my infield if I have to. Now I know all of you are salivating, wondering how Mr. Fielders will handle the pitching staff. This is the biggest puzzle in all of sports. But it's also quite simple, really. Or maybe I'm oversimplifying it. If you don't have an above average fastball velocity or get good extension, you're not going to be on this team. I studied the best seasons from Rockies pitchers. 2009 through 2010 Ubaldo Jimenez, 2008 Aaron Cook, and 2018 German Marquez, as well as Kyle Freeland. What I noticed is that they all basically had either an above average fastball or tumbling sinker that they threw at least 50% of the time. I'm very torn on how to evaluate breaking pitches because guys like 2018 German Marquez and arguably 2019 John Gray had loopy breaking pitches that they relied heavily upon to get outs. I'm just going with the logic that you need a fastball with good velocity that you can consistently locate to survive Coors. And the focus will be to get pitchers who rely on changes in velocity rather than movement to get whiffs and weak contact. So with my first pick, the first overall pick, I chose Bobby Witt Jr. Up the middle defense is a must, and he's the best defensive shortstop in baseball. I mean, there's little debate over it. Eye test, numbers, it all adds up. On top of that, he makes a lot of good contact. I mean, He legitimately could hit 370 with 40 homers in a Rockies uniform. He's the third best player in baseball after Judge and Ohtani. With Judge, I just worry about his legs. He'd have to spend time at DH, and I'm just not comfortable with that. With Ohtani, it feels like a waste of his pitching strengths, and as fun as it'd be to watch him hit 500-foot homers every night, I really can't justify using a first overall pick on someone who's going to be DHing 5 times a week. Bobby is also fairly cheap for 2026. With the number 2 pick, I am selecting starting pitcher Hunter Greene. I like his fastball a lot. His secondary is a slider, but to me, it's both fast and tight, and I don't think it's going to be as penalized at altitude. On top of that, he's got a plus splitter that he can up the usage on at home. With my 3rd pick, I am selecting Bobby Witt Jr.'s 2 o'clock partner, third baseman Maikel Garcia. Contact, contact, contact. Garcia makes so much contact, it'll make your head explode. Now, he is capped in the power department, but I believe his line drive ability could easily translate to 65 extra base hits. The first 3 picks combined are only making $27 million in 2026. The number 4 pick might be surprising, but I'm going with my new right fielder, Sal Frelick. A center fielder by trade, I'm confident in Sal Freezy's ability to navigate Coors' tricky right field with grit and an arm runners have to respect. Yet another player who brings elite contact. With my 5th pick, I selected starting pitcher Ryan Pepiot. I love Ryan Pepiot. He's got a 5-pitch mix headlined by one of the best 4-seam changeup combos in the game. On top of that, he's got great extension. His numbers might not have jumped off the page last year, but he severely underperformed his FIP. His fly ball rate does concern me some, but there is a reason I'm installing 3 center fielders in the outfield, and I believe he won't have much trouble limiting contact at altitude because of his arsenal. Pick number 6 went to Ryan Nelson. You need a good fastball to survive at Coors. No pitcher understands surviving off the strength of their fastball quite like Ryan Nelson. You want to talk about a half Nelson? What about a 3/4 Nelson? Or the ratio at which Ryan Nelson throws a fastball. He struggles with generating whiffs, but unlike Pepiot, is able to limit fly balls and has good command. I'm really just looking for pitchers who are going to be the least nerfed by pitching at altitude. With my 7th pick, I chose Jacob Young. I needed an elite defensive center fielder, and that's exactly what Jacob Young was put on this earth to be. He leads all center fielders in outs above average over the last 3 seasons. He also turns 27 in July, and guess what, baby? He makes a ton of contact. With my 8th pick, I selected Jeremiah Estrada to be my closer. I love his fastball a little bit too much. His splitter, you know, the one with the name I feel uncomfortable saying, shouldn't take too much of a hit either. And he just gets so many freaking whiffs, man. With my 9th pick, I took Vinny Pasquantino. I just realized I have literally annexed the Royals infield, but they have a good one. It's certainly not why they were mediocre last year. No, but I love Pasquatch, man. He'll be the source of power for this team. His in-zone contact rate is absurd. He might honestly be a slightly less athletic version of Todd Helton. Also, great clubhouse guy. That matters too. With my 10th pick, I cheated a bit. I took Jacob Marcy to be my left fielder. In reality, he would have gone much higher. He's got insane athleticism, great bat-to-ball skills, advanced swing decisions, and he optimizes his contact. Like Maikel Garcia, his power has a definitive cap, but I do think he could sneakily hit 20 homers in Coors. I'm not going to go through all my picks. If you want a full-scale breakdown of my draft, I have a write-up for it on my Patreon. I realized I was a bit too conservative with salaries because my 26-man payroll came out to a measly $73.3 million. Let's assume the rest of the 40-man roster is making league minimum. My final payroll would come out to $83.9 million, or the second lowest in baseball. Of course, this isn't a perfect exercise, and in reality, a lot of the pre-R players I selected probably would not have been available when they were in real life. But that's why this is a fantasy draft. That was fun. Now back to the cold reality of a team ran by people who fundamentally don't understand anything I just went over. After a long absence, Ezequiel Tovar is activated off the IL as Thairo Estrada goes back on with a thumb sprain this time. The Twins come to town for the post-All-Star break romp. Kyle Freeland takes the mound looking for his first win at Coors since August of 2024. No, I am not making that up. Jordan Beck starts the second half with a bang. History will forget how good Jordan Beck was for the first 4 months of the 2025 season, but I won't. Kyle Freeland delivers a quality start. Honestly, it sucks the starter's ERA won't reflect this because of all the nuclear level disasters we've seen, but the Rockies have gotten some pretty spectacular starts this season. Rocks take Game 1. Game 2 is Star Wars night. Darth Tovar becomes the Twins' father with a load-bearing 3-run homer off of reliever Brock Stewart in the 5th. This lineup desperately missed him. Skywalker Tella delivers a performance not even the relievers can squander. The Rockies have won their first home series in 2025. It is July 19th. Joe Ryan comes out and stymies the offense the next day, but honestly, they could have lost 20-1, and this still would be the best week of the season. First series win at home against the Twins. I do have a theory. After Game 2, was the moment the Twins realized they needed to sell everything off, because being the first team to drop a series against the Rockies at Coors, your team made the right move by selling off half the 26-man roster. Just calling it like I see it. I've watched so many of these Rockies games, and losing to this team at Coors is embarrassing. So I'll just give a shout out to Ryan McMahon. I know what's about to happen here. I'm getting emotional thinking about it. In that one win against the Reds, he made some good plays. Yeah, I'm looking forward to never watching Zach Agnos pitch again. Mickey Moniak is still fun. Jordan Beck is still fun. Tyler Freeman has the on-base streak, or had the on-base streak. Anyway, I thought I was going to keep this one short, so ending it here. Adiel Amador is recalled after Ryan Ritter suffers a hand injury. Herman Marquez is also placed on the IL with a bicep strain. Tanner Gordon will take his place in the rotation. The Rockies welcome the Cardinals to the Mile High City. Austin Gomber gets the start against his former team and posts another classic Coors line. 6 strikeouts, 0 walks, only 1 homer allowed, but 5 earned runs on 11 hits. The Rockies offense doesn't have any answers to Michael McGreevy. Ryan McMahon shows how much of a team player he is by doing everything in his power to raise his stock before the trade deadline. Rockies defense shows why PFP is important, and Ezekiel Tovar is back to bunting. Bradley Blaylock looks to continue his wrath against the NL Central in Game 2. The offense takes advantage of facing Eric Fetty, a pitcher who should just call in sick whenever his team visits Denver. Mickey Moniak sets a career high in homers, Adiel Amador wafts a huge double in the second, Ryan McMahon's trade stock continues to rise, and Bradley Blaylock is able to navigate through 9 base runners thanks to the catch of the season from Brenton Doyle, who is starting to finally look like himself again. Tanner Gordon takes the ball in Game 3. We are 1 win away from consecutive series wins for the first time all season. It is July 23rd. Adiel Amador shows that he might be able to stick around at the majors for a while. The Rockies end up pounding 5 straight singles in the second to score 4 runs. History will forget how good Tanner Gordon was in July, but I won't. Take a snapshot, folks, because the Rockies are playing their best baseball of the season so far. They've graduated from manure to mulch. So a ton of moves happened. Ryan McMahon, the longest tenured position player on this team, was traded to the Yankees. In return, they got left-handed pitcher Griffin Herring and right-handed pitcher Josh Gross. Herring ended the season as the Rockies' 9th-ranked prospect on MLB Pipeline. Gross is now with the Diamondbacks after struggling at High A Spokane. This trade needed to happen. To replace McMahon's spot on the roster, corner infielder Warming Bernabel is called up. Tyro Estrada is activated off the IL, which means Adiel Amador is the odd man out. So much for the youth movement. Veteran reliever Nick Anderson is also on this team now. The new-look Rockies head across the country to Baltimore. Brenton Doyle is out of the lineup. He would end up missing the entire series. Kyle Freeland has a rough start, allowing 2 runs in the first. But I will concede this is a sight we're seeing less and less frequently. Thanks to our 2 princes, the Rockies take the lead in the 5th. This is when the nemesis of the 2025 Rockies rears its ugly head. No, not first inning runs, not strikeouts, but the rain. So many times over the season, precipitation has spelled trouble for these Rockies. But this team has come so far, and this time, they're able to persevere over the weather. Kyle Freeland clutches up to finish the 6th, even after fans are told to flee the stands at risk of getting struck by lightning. Jake Bird allows the tying run to score in the 7th because Tyler Freeman shouldn't be in right field. Sorry. But in the top of the 8th, Ezekiel Tovar, through the raindrops, blast a go-ahead home run off of Andrew Kittredge. Tyler Kinley and Seth Alverson shut the door. The Rockies have taken 5 of their last 7. So, Game 2 of this series is very special to me. If you'll remember back to replacing Ripken, I went to Camden Yards for an Orioles game in order to interview fans. Viewers with a keen eye might have noticed that one of the more insightful interviewees was wearing a Rockies jersey.
That man's a gunner, actually. So, yeah, he's been great. Yeah, he's good. But we got Tovar, so I can't say too much.
That's because I was at this game. I have been torturing myself by watching Rockies baseball going back to July. And every single time I thought about pulling the plug on this experiment, which was frequent, I thought about it a lot, trust me, I had to remind myself that I couldn't turn my back on 7 months worth of suffering. First thing, one of my favorite uniform combinations between teams. Orioles orange pairs so well with the Rockies purple. Just one of the most aesthetically pleasing games I've ever been to. The on-field action was also insane. We had an Antonio Senzatella scheduled combustion, this freakish diving catch from Cedric Mullins, his 100th career homer with the Orioles right before he gets traded, Rockies pitchers errors galore, Zach Agnos injury, Alex Jackson's Happy Gilmore homer, Trevor Rogers' one-hit performance, and Warming Bernabel's first career hit coming off an infield single in the 9th, down by 18. This game was wild. I had a great time watching it live. I had an even better time reliving it. Rockies get crushed by Tomoyuki Sugano in Game 3, but Warming Bernabel gets his first career homer. I like this guy. What a week in Rockies baseball. Adiel Amador has a really good series. He looks like someone who should remain with the team, but they send him down once Thairo Estrada gets activated, which I kind of understand, but also kind of don't understand, especially considering Yanquiel Fernandez is still on this roster, and he has been a net negative for the team. He's been awful. It's been painful to watch. He is up there now with Michael Toglia as my least favorite Rocky for the 2025 season. It's bad. 2 series wins in a row. Believe it or not. This is a team on the precipice of getting into their stride. And then they lose 18-0 to the Orioles. And you realize you're still watching the 2025 Rockies. Nothing has changed. This isn't the same roster that we saw in April, but this is the same team. Rockies head up to the home of the Rocks and Roll Hall of Fame to face the Cleveland Guardians. Jesus Christ, why do I write this? Brenton Doyle is back in the lineup. Bradley stays blade locked in, racking up 7 strikeouts through 6 scoreless innings. History will forget how good Bradley Blaylock was in July, but I won't. Jake Bird undoes his work, allowing a 3-run homer to Bo Naylor, but the Rockies, off the backs of Hunter Goodman's bat, come back to stun the Guardians in Game 1. Warming Bernabel also homered. This team has some legitimate fight in them. Unfortunately, in Game 2, Tanner Gordon has his regression start. Seriously, it felt like I blinked and suddenly the Guardians were up 10-1. Credit where credit is due though, Michael Toglia hit a home run. Jordan Beck, a real E-Pro, also homered. In Game 3, the Rockies get shut out by Colby Allard and company. Cal Freeland, who continues to persevere this season, stays in the game after suffering a leg injury. He would end up leaving after the 3rd. This experiment has given me a newfound appreciation for Cal Freeland. I love this guy, man. He bleeds silver and purple. So typically I've done the transaction log segments at the beginning of each week, but with the July 31st trade deadline, I had to move it to the middle. The Rockies made some moves. Jake Bird was traded to the Yankees. In return, they received second baseman and Rougned Odor enthusiast Rock Riggio, as well as left-handed pitcher Ben Shields. They also traded Tyler Kinley to the Braves for right-handed pitcher Austin Smith. Taking their place on the roster is reliever Dugan Darnell and the return of Carson Palmquist. The Pirates come to town for a weekender. Game 1 of the series was obviously circled on my calendar. I knew I had to watch the full thing. Arguably the game of the year, at least during the regular season. At this point, I wanted to share the joy of Rockies baseball with everyone. Antonio Senzatella, God bless him, he is still in this game. So I decided to stream myself watching the game, and it was a blast. We had to navigate through a few issues with copyright. All right, give me a second here. Let's deep fry this game. Let's see what we got here. Color correction. Ooh. Because what I did was not all that legal, but my mind has been so inundated with Rockies baseball, it's hard for me to tell the difference between right and wrong. Why are you choosing Orlando Arcia? I want to personally thank everyone who tuned in. I enjoy streaming a lot more than I initially thought. And the comeback starts. Couldn't really see it because of the saturation. That woman looked like she just stared into the eyes of God. I want to do it more during the regular season this year, so if that's something you'd be interested in, please comment below. He's solar! He's solar! Look, not to get emotional, Brenton Doyle at this point has had a dog shit year. If anybody needed this, it was him. I've seen this man at his lowest point. And just knowing that, like that's the thing I really appreciate about watching every Rockies game, is that it's one thing to watch the highlight, right? It's one thing to see Brenton Doyle hit the walk-off home run, you know, you're on Instagram, you're on YouTube, but just by watching every game and seeing this man struggle to get the ball out of the infield to launching that ball for, I think, his first career walk-off home run. I could be wrong about that. That's what this is all about. That swing right there. This is why I do this. Paul Skeens gets his first start at Coors, and he is definitely someone the pitching nerds are going to know is not all that well suited for pitching at altitude. The Rockies jump all over him in the 6th inning to get their 3rd comeback win of the week. Jordan Beck delivers the milk and honey with a 2-hit walk and a homer performance. This team is playing some damn good baseball right now. It's very watchable for once. The only bad news is that Seth Halverson left with a right flexor strain. Despite Hunter Goodman's 3rd homer of the week in Game 3, Bradley Blaylock's magical July is over as the Rockies experience the reverse Rock series, winning the first 2 before dropping the Sunday matchup. Very rare for them. Crazy series. Do yourself a favor and watch some games between 2 awful teams this year. You will get some fun, chaotic baseball out of it. I promise. The Rockies, more like the comebackies. Am I right? Oh. The Blue Jays come to town, and similar to the Brewers, this is a team that values contact. They don't strike out, they put the ball in play, and so without remembering or looking up the final scores, I predicted the Blue Jays would have a good series at the plate. Even I was not expecting what would happen next. Over the course of 3 games, the Blue Jays showed the Rockies everything they should be, and everything they're not. The Rockies could easily have a Nathan Lucas on the roster. They could easily have an Alejandro Kirk, an Ernie Clement, a Davis Schneider. Dalton Varsho would be an amazing corner outfielder, or even a straight-up center fielder for them. Kevin Gausman, who's from the Denver area, has the repertoire to pitch at altitude. Meanwhile, the Rockies see more bad defense from Tyler Freeman and Wright, injuries to both Orlando Arcia and Tyro Estrada in Game 2, as well as a spot start from Anthony Molina. Ezequiel Tovar and Jimmy Herget have been good though. And hey, look at this Brenton Doyle catch. The Rockies went from playing their best baseball of the season to getting spanked by the Blue Jays over the course of allowing 45 runs in a 3-game series. Right now is as good of a time as ever to discuss a problem the Rockies have on their hands. I love this chart. I mean, I really love this chart right here, the one you're looking at. If you want a 1,000-foot view into how your team approached hitting in 2025, this is one of the better ones to take a glance at. It's so glorious. Hard hit rate versus swinging strike rate. There is a raging debate in today's game about sacrificing contact for power and vice versa. In my mind, both strategies can work, and the game is better when there is an equilibrium between the 2 philosophies. In the top right here is what I like to call the bangers quadrant. We have teams like the Seattle Mariners, who a few seasons removed from preaching a minimal strikeout approach, learned how to stop worrying about the whiffs and love the bombs. An approach that almost took the forlorn franchise to the World Series. In the lower left, we have the Mashers quadrant. These are teams that sacrifice power to make more contact. The best team during the regular season embraced this approach to great effect. Of course, we have a few teams who excelled in both. Headlining it, of course, are the Blue Jays, who seemingly out of nowhere pumped out one of the greatest blends of bat speed and bat-to-ball skills, a rare combination that almost netted them a World Series trophy. Over here is generally where you don't want to be. I tried to give the Athletics the benefit of the doubt by saying they optimized their contact to generate better power outputs, but methinks they might have outperformed their true talent level just a bit, especially being in a minor league ballpark. Same story with the Rays. The Angels had some pop, but a ton more miss. You may be wondering where the Rockies even are. Right here. They had the worst swinging strike rate in baseball, and it wasn't particularly close. That is something they could work around had they made the most of their contact, but as a team, they were bottom 10 in hard hit rate. This is bad. This is how you get an offense that has too many zeros and not enough thump to cash in with what few base runners they actually produced. If I was to come in and fix the Rockies, this is one of the first charts I'd show them. You can have strikeout issues, you can have quality of contact issues, but you cannot have both. We have some big roster moves on our hands. Thairo Estrada is placed on the 60-day IL with a hamstring strain. His season is over. Orlando Arcia is on the 10-day IL with right elbow inflammation. I thought it was a leg injury, but okay. Angel Shivi is also on the restricted list. I tried to find a reason for it, but came up empty. But some good news on the youth movement front. Third base prospect Kyle Karros is being called up. Adiel Amador is also getting the call back. And also Aaron Schunk is back. Remember him? The Rockies head back to Arizona for the final time this season. The heated rivalry of Blaze Alexander versus Warming Bernabel begins. Game 1 is just your run-of-the-mill bad game. Austin Gomber's nightmare season continues. Kyle Karros collects his first MLB hit, which was an RBI single, so that was cool. Game 2 was a lot better of a loss. Brenton Doyle is fully back as he continues his hot August. Kyle Karros gets his first career extra base hit, but Bradley Blaylock's August woes continue, and Jimmy Herget, who's now been the most consistent reliever, gives up back-to-back doubles to lose the game in the 9th. History is erased when Tanner Gordon suffers death by 1,000 paper cuts amidst a Rockies defensive collapse in the 5th. Seriously, this man was 1 out away from getting out of the inning and allowed 7 runs after Bernabel's errant throw. Just devastating stuff for Gordo and friends. Rockies follow up their best week of baseball with one of the worst. Chase Dollander was recalled, and the era of Austin Nola has come to an end. He has been designated for assignment. The Rockies travel to St. Louis to play the Cardinals. Chase Dollander is back and grew out a sick beard to celebrate. He puts up a good outing, but gets bitten by the Cardinals' Devil Magic. Speaking of Devil Magic, Miles Michaelis is no-hitting the Rockies. Getting no-hit by 36-year-old Miles Michaelis through 4 innings should result in an automatic forfeit. Getting no hit by him through 5 innings should result in a team-wide 5-game suspension. Even getting 1 hit against him through 6 should call relegation into question. Rockies lose. Game 2 was, to put it simply, magical. Kyle Freeland makes the start. This season, he's just been kicked up and down, struggling through injuries, prolonged slumps, the hometown kid, who's been really the lifeblood of this franchise, and thus has probably been hit hardest by this awful season. He throws a gem. Yeah, you can say he only struck out 2 Cardinals, but hey, look at the chart. This is a team that made a lot of contact. He goes into the 8th inning. He was pouring out every ounce his body allowed on each pitch. His slider was sharp, fastball well located. Even in a season from hell for Kyle Freeland, he'll get to look back on this one start and crack a smile. Hunter Goodman hits his 23rd of the year in the 4th. Rockies win. Austin Gomber gets his second start versus his former team on Sunday. At this point, I feel so bad for Austin Gomber, man. Imagine growing up, building your entire identity around being good at baseball. So good, in fact, that you get visits from scouts and eventually get offered life-changing scholarships to play collegiate ball. You get drafted by the Cardinals, a proud, successful organization who has already won 2 World Series in your lifetime. That's awesome. They have a pretty good pitching dev too. You'll definitely hone your craft. Who knows? You might even be able to pitch to Yadi Molina at some point. And then you get traded to the Rockies for Nolan Arenado no less, and are forced to play in an environment antithetical to your entire game. The coaching staff tries to be helpful. They obviously care, but are just not equipped to give you the information needed to navigate through this inferno. Fast forward a few years and every start you're getting lit up and just have to wear it. You have no choice. You can't request a trade unless you want to look like a prima donna. Your job is to show up and take a pummeling with no end in sight. Oh, Rockies won this one. Nice. The team flies back home to face the Diamondbacks for the final time this year. Bradley Blaylock's July feels like a distant memory. There was a moment I genuinely thought we were getting a repeat of the Padres game, and honestly, I don't know if I could have emotionally handled that. I mean, look how happy this man was a month ago. Kyle Farmer and Brenton Doyle homer, but this one was just a lousy loss. Players Weekend starts on Friday. I don't have anything clever to say about it, just that it's happening. Hunter Goodman hits his 25th of the year in the 1st. Jordan Beck drops a gamma ray into center, fooling Alec Thomas. Tanner Gordon has a redemption start, and the bullpen, backed by Jimmy Herget, Juan Mejia, and Victor Vodnik, shut the door down. Chase Dollander gets his first start at Coors since being recalled. Has the time in Albuquerque taught him anything about pitching at altitude? No, not really. But to be fair, his defense let him down. Rockies fantasy starter Ryan Nelson is pitching for the Diamondbacks, and he gets through 6 1/3. I'm just saying, I might know some ball here. Warming Bernabel touched him up in the second, and this kid in a Gritchick jersey booted the hell out of the ball. I want to know what the deal is with fans in this section specifically not being able to make plays. The Diamondbacks have a 7-2 lead entering the 7th, but the Rockies have some fight in them. Ryan Ritter RBI triple in the 7th, scores on a Freeman groundout, and then Kyle Farmer made Lourdes Gurriel look like Jordan Beck with the field and the throw. Tyler Freeman delivers the final punch. Outside of that week from hell, the Rockies are still playing their best baseball of the season. I mean, that's what, 4 comeback wins in less than a month? I can't believe what I'm about to say. This team is fun. Sunday sees yet another come from behind win. Mickey Moniak and Ryan Ritter deliver big time hits after Jake Woodford hit 2 straight batters. Funnily enough, both the catchers on the roster. Love this 94-mile-per-hour fastball from Jimmy Herget to get Corbin Carroll with runners on. The game ends on my absolute favorite moment of the season. With runners on second and third, Ketel Marte pops up towards first. This team, who struggles with both calling off other fielders and PFP, now must juggle both. Somehow, someway, Mejia hangs on. He's okay, and the Rockies just took 3 out of 4 against the Diamondbacks. Every time this team pushes me away, they reel me back in. We finally have a winning record against a National League team. Love that. Chase Dolander's back. He looked pretty good in both his starts. He got kind of screwed by his defense in his start against the Diamondbacks. Defense has just been weird this entire week. I mean, it's been weird this entire season, but especially this week. Oh my gosh. The Game 4 ending against the Diamondbacks. I mean, Jesus, that could have ended horribly. Player of the week, as much as I want to give it to Hunter Goodman, I got to give Jimmy Herget his flowers. He was amazing. We only have a few weeks left. Thank goodness. I am so ready for this to be over. We got a pretty ugly stretch of baseball ahead of us, so strap yourselves in. Just when all seems well, the Dodgers come to town. Kyle Freeland, coming off one of the best starts in his career, looks to build off the momentum. He is almost immediately killed by a Shohei Ohtani screaming liner, and leaves due to yet another blister. Can someone get this man some lotion? Ryan Ritter, who's sneakily having a good month of August, delivers a huge 2-run single against Yamamoto to tie the game. Dodgers promptly take the lead back. Ezekiel Tovar, who at this point I wouldn't blame if he decided to just phone it in for the last 5 weeks, launches his second late inning game tying shot in the last month. Warming Bernabel comes up with a runner on second in the 9th and sneaks a single up the middle. Rockies walk it off yet again. Austin Gomber gets the start in game 2. This team is looking for their first 5-game winning streak of the season. It is August 19th. Unfortunately, Gomi gets got. It is a 6-0 game in the blink of an eye. What could have been a huge rally in the 4th is ended prematurely by a Miguel Rojas huge heads-up play. Not to beat a dead horse, but I don't think Alan Trejo is turning that. Despite Kyle Karros' first career homer, the Rockies' offense falls well short. Austin Gomber has some things to say.
Well, yeah, just making bad pitches, I just feel like I'm in a tough spot right now, it sucks to let the team down. I just feel like I'm just a little bit lost out there right now, don't really have any confidence, conviction, really don't really have like an identity of what I'm trying to do, so just trying to figure it out, man. It's kind of, it is what it is.
He was released after the series. Miguel Rojas makes yet another heads-up play in Game 3. Orlando Arcia almost kills Shohei Ohtani on the mound. Brenton Doyle continues his scorching August. He has a 1.1 OPS with a 45-homer, 207 hit pace through 18 games. Where would this team be without Jimmy Herget? The human glitch himself, everyone. Just a round of applause for the guy. I'm butter-knifing the shit out of his numbers, but he's rocking a 1.82 ERA with a cool 21.1% K- walk rate in his last 20 outings. He's been awesome. Rockies win 8-3 with the opportunity to do the funniest thing ever in Game 4. They don't. Chase Dolander gets lit up again at Coors, and his home road splits are becoming absurd. Brenton Doyle does make this nice catch. He's legitimately been one of the most valuable players this month. Rockies and Dodgers split, which that does have some comedic value in it. The Rockies head to Pittsburgh for their final East Coast trip of the season. Antonio Senzatella, whose roller coaster of a month began by facing these Pirates, gets the Game 1 start. He gets knocked around by Andrew McCutchen and company. I'll be honest, the most notable part of this game was Bubba Chandler's MLB debut for the Pirates. He got the rare 4-inning save, a real throwback to the good old days to finish shutting the Rockies out for the 12th time this season. If I'm being honest, this was an especially frustrating series to watch. After the barn burners we got in Colorado, this series was both offenses showing their true colors. It was like that one scene in Spy Kids 3D where they have the programmers or whatever, and they look so cool and badass in their video game attire, but outside of it, they're just a bunch of dweebs. That was this series. The Tyler Freeman fall off is real. He's clipping at a 595 OPS in August. Mickey Moniak is struggling. He's at a 546. Jesus. And that's who was hitting at the top of the order on Sunday. McCade Brown makes his major league debut in the spot left vacant by Austin Gomber. It was aight. This is a funny team, man. Let me tell you. They split a series at home against the Dodgers. The two games they win were started by Yoshinobu Yamamoto and Shohei Ohtani. Then they go to Pittsburgh, a team that they pretty convincingly beat at home just a couple weeks ago, and they get swept. Granted, Paul Skeens did start one of those games. Yeah, I mean, Jared Triolo owns the Rockies, Andrew McCutchen owns the Rockies, Alexander Canario owns the Rockies. I mean, no, just another piss poor week in Rockies baseball. Player of the week, I don't know, Brenton Doyle. He's been on fire, and it's really good to see what he's done in the second half, considering how brutal he looked back in May and June and most of July. The Rockies make their way back west towards Houston to face the Astros. Hunter Goodman, the metronome of this team constantly clicking, delivers the big blast off of Astros ace Hunter Brown. Jordan Beck and Brenton Doyle make a few huge plays, Tanner Gordon has a solid rebound outing, and of course, who can forget Jimmy Herget. Huge Game 1 win. Rockies get shut out in Game 2. The real tragedy is that it wastes one of Chase Dolander's best starts of the season. Maybe he should only pitch in Texas. Rockies also drop Game 3, despite Timo Yordan Alvarez's solo homer in the 5th. Can someone please make sure this team does their PFP during spring training this year? The Rockies head back home. They're staying on the West Coast to finish out the season to face the Cubs. German Marquez makes his first start since returning from the IL, and it wasn't pretty. Rockies drop Game 1. History will forget how good Yanquiel Fernandez was in August. I'm going to forget too. He was pretty shit otherwise. Game 2 was forgettable. Nothing against McCade Brown. I'm just tired of watching these pitchers with below league average fastball velocities receive the call and get predictably walloped at cores. Tanner Gordon does throw a gem the next day though. In the last 10 years, only 24 Rockies pitchers have had a 9 strikeout, 1 walk game at cores. Tanner became number 25 on Sunday, but Mickey Moniak comes in for the rare walk-off triple to cap off this second best month of the season for the Rocks. So we had a good old-fashioned loss sandwich on our hands. We had a win to start the week, we had a win to end the week, and then we had a whole bunch of losses in the middle. Player of the week honors, obviously Tanner Gordon. You don't really see that kind of line from a Rockies pitcher. Shout out to him. Strap yourselves in. It's not going to be a fun one. Drew Romo and Ryan Rolston are the September call-ups. Fun fact, Romo was actually supposed to be the catcher of the future, but Hunter Goodman had other plans. The Rockies welcome the Giants back to cores for the final time this season. Despite a great play from Tovar and huge stays at the plate from him and Doyle, the rest of the Rockies lineup makes Kaiwei Tang look like Matt Cain, as they can only muster across 2 runs, while Chase Dolander continues his struggles at altitude. Game 2 is the one we all remember, probably the final memorable moment from the Rockies season. Rafael Devers hits a moonshot off of Kyle Freeland, and ganders at it a bit too long for Freeland's liking, so Kyle starts barking at him. I know Freeland looks like the curmudgeon here, but after experiencing the season alongside him now, I totally understand where he's coming from. He's just tired, man. He's given up 21 homers this season, already on his way to a career-high 17 losses. The last thing K-Free needs is someone taking their time to admire his shortcomings. I know, it's a bad look, but put yourself in his cleats and tell me you wouldn't act a little grumpy here. Antonio Senzatella, who is now this team's designated loser, takes over after Freeland's ejection. He holds down the fort, but Angel Shivii and Jaden Hill made like Robert Anderson and lose it. Maybe it was already lost long ago. Game 3 is a good one. Most notable play is the scary collision at the plate between Tyler Freeman and Giants catcher Patrick Bailey. Tyler Freeman, who is just an absolute dog, stays in the game. Jordan Beck keeps me up all night with a single to take the lead. But the Rockies bullpen cannot get the job done and turns a close game into a distant memory. Rockies welcomed San Diego to try and play spoiler instead of what they were doing by playing Kingmaker. Remember Kyle Freeland's start in St. Louis? Well, he made that one look like a blow-up. He throws 8 innings of 2-hit, no walk, 10 strikeout ball against a desperate Padres lineup. This was the 8th highest game score for a Rocky starter in team history, and 5th highest at Coors. He also became just the 9th pitcher in Rockies history to throw a 10 strikeout, no walk game at the stadium. Even with a few clunkers thrown in, he has a 3.56 ERA with supporting peripherals in his last 6 starts. Hunter Goodman provides the juice on offense. He's been amazing. The Rockies get their 40th win of the season. It is September 6th. The team they are currently playing got their 40th win on June 19th. McCade Brown gets demolished in Game 2. His season ERA starts with a 12. In a season full of hideous plays from pitchers, it is newcomer Roansy Contreras who makes the worst of them all, which leads to a 4-run inning. Hunter Goodman breaks the team record for homers from a catcher. Jordan Beck adds a homer of his own to attempt another comeback, but this one falls short. The team cannot even feign a comeback attempt in Game 3 after another Tanner Gordon blowup. Antonio Senzatella is really good in his new role. I'm super proud of him. This team is just making me physically sick to watch. I need to visit my doctor or something, because I feel every time now I watch this team, I feel nauseous. Kyle Freeland, I will give it to him. What a hell of a start. And Hunter Goodman, who will be my player of the week. As much as I want to give it to Kyle Freeland, Hunter Goodman just did everything in his power to try and put this team on his back, and it just wasn't enough. Luis Peralta, it is pain to watch this man throw a baseball. Yeah, I'm going to need to take a break for a minute, because it hurts me on the inside and now on the outside. Oh, sorry. Watching this team play, this is pain. Y'all, I'm beat. I'm sure you are too. We've been here for quite some time, and there's only so many ways I can describe this team losing. And to no one's surprise, September happens to have a lot more in store for us. Trust me when I say, I did watch these games, and I think y'all have gotten the picture by this point. I'll tell you what, I'll show you some September lowlights while I recite all of the different ways this team is going to forever live in infamy, and then we can wrap things up from there. The elephant in the room is run differential. They had the worst run differential in the modern era, and they weren't exactly neck and neck with the 1932 Red Sox. They scored the fewest runs in a non-shortened season in franchise history, only racked up the 3rd fewest strikeouts behind the 24 and 23 squads. Their starters' negative 15.02 WPA is the worst mark in MLB history. Turns out all those first inning runs added up. And last but not least, their team-wide 75 WRC plus is tied for 5th worst since the expansion era. The final game of the season had it all for the Rocks. First inning runs, check. Strikeouts galore, check. Shutout, this team is nothing but consistent. Brenton Doyle, who unfortunately has been the final out a total of 16 times this season, plays the hits, or more fittingly I should say, the outs. He puts an end to both their and my suffering. Okay. It's over. We're done. That was game 162. I'm free. I feel for these guys. You know, I know these are $1 million athletes, but at the end of the day, they're people too. Imagine having to come into work every day knowing that you're going to have a bad day at the office. It's public. Everybody knows. It's no secret. This is part of your legacy. All 57 players who suited up for the 2025 Rockies will forever be associated with being on arguably the worst team of all time. That sucks for them. You know, some of them had a major part in it. Some of them had a minor part in it. While watching the last game, I made a list of ranking all the Rockies players, all the full-time-ish Rockies players, based on how ready they are for the season to be over. I have a tie at number 1 between Ezequiel Tovar and Antonio Senzatella. I mean, Ezequiel Tovar, especially that last week, he looked awful. His swing started the offseason early. I'll just put it like that. Number 3, Kyle Freeland. Next up, Brenton Doyle. Huge regression from 2024. Jordan Beck, number 5. I mean, really solid year from Jordan Beck. Wasn't able to make adjustments fast enough before his season started spiraling out. Number 6, Ryan Ritter. I mean, a pretty okay rookie season, all things considered. Number 7, Mickey Moniak. He had a great time. He looked like he was genuinely having fun. Next up, we have German Marquez. I know German Marquez had an awful year, but unlike some of the guys before him, he doesn't have job security right now. As of recording this, he's still a free agent. For a guy like him, even how bad the season was, how much he was savoring every moment, knowing this might have been his last in a Rockies uniform. And then Hunter Goodman. Hunter Goodman was having a great year. And then we have Warming Bernabel. Again, Warming Bernabel had his best stretch of baseball we'll see in his career when he debuted. He's not getting that back. I mean, he's with the Nationals right now. He's just, unfortunately, his swing is kind of ugly. Like, it's just not going to sustain at the major league level. And then number 13, Jimmy Herget. Jimmy Herget was great. I mean, especially as the season was going on. You want to talk about a guy who was just getting better as the season went on. It was Jimmy Herget. And again, like, this is a wily veteran. He's been pitching in the league for 7 years now, sorry. Probably pitched the best baseball of his career to end the season. This guy had a 1.69 ERA, 1.64 FIP in his final 21 appearances. I mean, he could have pitched for another 2 or 3 months if it was up to him. So, but yeah, the team, they ended the season on a 6-game losing streak. They got swept out by both the Mariners and Giants. They didn't really do a good job playing spoiler. We'll see if I want to do this again, but man, that was painful. All right, checking out. I don't really want to stand on my soapbox this time and go on a diatribe about all the ways this team is fundamentally broken. We've been watching it firsthand for around 2 hours now. Instead, I'm going to make the argument about how the Rockies are good for baseball. Some of you may remember that I was in the first Bros vs. Pros game back in 2022, when we were facing the Burlington Sock Puppets. For those unaware about Bros vs. Pros, it's set up by 5 Points Vids and Urinating Tree, where a bunch of YouTubers play either professional or collegiate level athletes. In this instance, we got our asses whooped by the Burlington Sock Puppets. I struck out. I remember after the game talking to some of the local fans. I sheepishly apologized for our pretty unwatchable performance. That's when one of them said something that stuck with me ever since. She said, "It's not a problem at all. You made our guys look good." And I know Rockies fans watching are not going to want to hear this, and I don't know what level of facetious I'm being right now, but that's how I feel about the Rockies. If you were a fan of any team the Rockies faced, minus the Twins, Cardinals, and Marlins, you were having a grand old time watching these games. Maybe the league needs a team that does everything wrong. It creates a fundamental balance in the game's delicate ecosystem. And yeah, sure, once in a blue moon, they can have a good team and make the playoffs and it'll be a feel-good story. But they still draw fairly well every year. They extend their players, spend in free agency when necessary, and have done almost too good of a job keeping the middle class of players employed. I mean, look at all these names they've rostered over the last 5 seasons. CJ Cron, Connor Joe, Michael Givens, Randall Grichuk, Alex Colomé, Jerkson Profar, Brent Suter, and don't forget our guy Nick Martini. In my mind, teams like the Athletics, White Sox, and Pirates are outright bad for the game because their owners either blatantly don't care about their team or are way too cheap to put on the best possible on-field product despite playing in fair markets. The only real issue I have is that our guy Dick Monfort, Mr. Delusional himself, is going to be front line and center for the owners committee during the impending lockout, and he wants a salary cap on everything, from rosters to the front office to scouting, in order to artificially create competitive balance. How the fate of the game's economic system is being left in the hands of someone who never saw the need to hire scouts outside of the ones who came with the organization when he bought it is beyond me. But this is the reality we're facing. There's a Monfort-level delusional part of me that believes if the Rockies have a passable season in 2026, say they avoid 100 losses, maybe Mr. Monfort will soften up on the whole salary cap. And hey, isn't that what sports is all about? Wishing for the impossible. All I know is that I'll be keeping an eye on this team going into the season. The beauty of baseball is the amount of time you spend with these players. When it's a team like the Rockies, full of a ton of guys largely anonymous to the national eye, it tends to strengthen your connection to them. I mean, shit, I remember being at the All-Star red carpet in Atlanta, and there were crickets when Hunter Goodman walked across. I'm pretty sure most people just thought he was one of Clayton Kershaw's kids. You want to root for them and see them do well, even if just individually. This team was fun at points. I mean, they led the league in triples. I know a triple is basically a double that says more about the fielder fielding it than the hitter hitting it, but it's an objectively fun play. They had the most comeback wins. I know this is more to do with their starters putting them in early deficits, but comebacks are always fun. Just look at my rate game average for this team. I'm going to miss watching Brenton Doyle doing the mental calculations on whether he needs to dive on a sinking liner while sprinting nearly 30 meters per second. I'm going to miss the way Jordan Beck looks towards the first base coach during his at-bats. I'm going to miss watching Jimmy Herget zigzag his way through scoreless innings. I'll miss Kyle Freeland. And hey, this season was a reckoning for the Rockies. They finally sought outside help to manage this roster. Ignore who they actually brought in, because at least it's a step in the right direction. Will I ever do this again? I don't know. It was a lot, y'all, trust me. I like to enjoy what I do. In fact, it's why I do this. I didn't think I would actually be torturing myself, and I did. This is real, okay? This is real. This isn't scripted. This is raw emotion spilling from my guts right now. But I guess we'll see how the video performs. Man. Anyway, I don't have anything prophetic or memorable to say. My brain is jelly right now. I hope you enjoyed watching. Go outside. You've been inside for way too long. And I'll see you next time. We have 2 new level 2 ball wizards. First is Mark W. Honbo. Glad to have you on board. Our favorite scorekeeper. Love that story you shared about Roy White. I really appreciated that. As well as Skylander Gamer TV. Thank you all so much. Patreon.com/NoMoreFielders. It's just $3 or $5 a month. And again, next 50 people to sign up for the level 2 ball wizard tier gets a free sticker. So, I mean, that's a pretty sweet deal if you ask me.